Check, check. How my mic sound? Hello? Somebody? Tell me how my mic sound.
Sound all right to me, Jerry.
Can you see me clearly?
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Your cute is up, sir.
Oh, some of them look dark, because to me, me look dark. I know I'm black, but I don't look dark. Because it's hard to light black people in a way. Shadows get quick on you. All right. It's going to be a tight program.
Austin's email address, and that's when she started the whole affair. I need to tell you sooner.
Are we required to stand for the national anthem, or we can sit?
I was going to ask that too. But how will they know we're not?
I think we should allow people to sit. Virtual space. Personally, once the national anthem play, we're supposed to stand up. But some of them might address right down below. So we don't want nobody who can't stand up, they have to lock off them camera to stand up. So that doesn't make sense. So I would recommend that we play it and we all sit reverently and in good posture. Is that okay with Mr. Smith, Ian, and everybody else?
Yeah, that's fine, sir.
All right, thank you. Guys, you know, someone when you look good up at top. Let me be quiet until we start. We should be starting right now. Am I correct? Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jerry.
Ah, such lovely voices chiming in. This is like music. Keep them coming. Good evening, everyone. It's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful day. It's Sunday, and we are here to be knowledgeified. You can write that word down. It's in my vocabulary. You can add it to yours.
Is that the past tense or the present tense?
Oh, no, it's present participle. We are here to be knowledgeified.
Greetings from upstate New York.
You hear that? Upstate New York, not just New York.
That's Mr. Jeremiah Johnson.
Checking in from Catskill Mountain.
Greetings from Florida.
Good evening, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Johnson. So we know that Florida is on, Jerry, they're in the place, and upstate New York is in the place.
Yep.
South Carolina.
South Carolina is here.
GG representing Philadelphia.
Philly's in the house.
Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Jersey's in the house.
North Carolina.
NC's here also.
That's right.
What? So nobody there from the back to
No, them not.
Clarendon and everything.
Them not reach yet.
Greetings, Spanish Town, Jamaica, in the house.
That's how maybe I talk about Spanish Town there. When I go over to foreign business, Spanish Town is here. Where we come from?
Greetings from Indiana.
Indiana is in the house.
What? Good evening, Indiana. What time is it in Indiana? Is it the same time as us?
Greetings from Yard.
Yeah. Yeah, this in the building. We are minutes into the start time for today's webinar, the first in a series. And I am Jerry Benswick, one of your hosts for this evening. And online with us today are my other hosts, Dr. Lily Tomlinson, Nordia Teep, and Dr. Karen Dunkley, who I would love for them to step on out and show them face and wave and say hello.
Yo, Jerry.
Yeah.
Greetings from Yard too.
Of course.
I think we have a good representation this evening from all over. It's indeed a global connection. And what kind of evening is it, Jerry?
It is we're going to be, what word to say? Knowledgeified.
Knowledgeified.
Yes, we're going to be getting knowledge from places and people who have all the experience that we need to learn about travel and immigration. You know, some people might just want to travel the world, and we're here to learn all we need to learn. So let's get started because we have a very packed program and we don't want to waste any time. I've introduced my co-hosts for this evening, but I haven't seen them on my screen. I don't know why not. Nordia, are you going to show yourself a little bit and say hello, everyone? Calling you out. And if Nordia is not going to show herself, she has to at least say hello to everybody. Right, Nordia? And if I'm not hearing from, here comes Nordia. Are we hearing her?
London checking in as well, Jerry.
Hello, London.
That's
how y'all doing, mate? Milady Holland raised. Oh, is that Milady Holland? Hello.
Boy, Jimmy, we are called Milady.
It's Froggy.
Really? Or your name spell M-E-L-A-D-E?
It's Milady.
Okay, Milady. It's beautiful. Maybe I know that's the name is pretty, sir. No, sir. This is a Froggy a real name. From me know you till now, a Froggy me know you. I don't know nothing else.
Yeah, well,
let me get us on point. We will start with Dr. Lily Thompson. I'm sorry, we would like to invite everyone to sit in good posture. If you're seated, if you're standing, that's even better, for the playing of the national anthem. we're just waiting for the national anthem to play. Or we could sing it.
Or we could have a word of prayer from upstate New York.
Upstate New York is ready to go and rock. I like that.
I'm going ready to pray. Ready to pray. God blessing on this meeting.
Yeah. We
All
have
right,
the prayer, but it was after the national anthem. So let us take Pastor Ian Smith in the interim.
Thank you very much, Pastor Smith. Please take it away. Let's assume a posture of reverence.
Amen. Let us pray. Father, we come before you this afternoon, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. God, where you have gathered us together in this fashion and this form. Father, oftentimes in a gathering like this, when we read your word, we see the scribes would have gathered the people. The scribes were a group of men who wrote the law. They knew the law. They understood the laws of the land, and they were able to explain it. This gathering, it's no different. There are individuals who will gather this evening. Hearts are overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do what needs to be done. But this opportunity, oh God, will present them information that will quiet the fears and the doubts that is in their hearts. And so I pray this afternoon that God, in the presentation of information, hearts will be quieted. Information will be shared, not only to those who are fearful, but information will be shared that is enlightening to each and every one. And so I just ask your blessing upon this meeting. I pray, oh God, that you will be the center of everything we do and everything that we say. And I just ask, oh God, for you to cover us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for joining us today, for logging on, sharing the information. Please continue to share with everyone who is not logged on yet, that they can jump on into this webinar series. It is Global Connection Webinar #1, presented by the St. Catherine alumni. And this has been put together by a very hardworking group of individuals who believe that knowledge is important. And we are sometimes shopping around in the dark and fishing around in the bag, like grab bag, something that we actually want to make a tangible experience for us. And this is one way of us giving back to our community by sharing the information that has allowed many individuals to immigrate or migrate or to settle elsewhere, or actually to travel, just go and come from Jamaica and other places comfortably without fear. And so we want that knowledge to be shared, and here we are today to present that. I'm going to allow Lily to go ahead and acknowledge some of the individuals who are here today and our sponsors who have helped us put this together.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We want to acknowledge all of our sponsors who are on board with us today. CEEN TV providing us with live streaming. We say thank you so very much. We know that Pika will be in the house as well, so we want to acknowledge them. And this evening, as Jerry rightfully said, will be an evening packed with information. So we don't need to do any unnecessary shopping around for the correct information, because I believe that everything that you need to know about citizenship, work permit, residency, everything will be addressed here. And we have the right people on board representing the diaspora. I see Dr. Dunkley coming on already. So we know it's going to be an evening packed with information. You need to get your pens and paper ready. So we want to acknowledge all of our sponsors as we come this evening for a time of enlightenment. Just one housekeeping matter we want to ask, that we know that many persons are in the comfort of their homes. So we're asking you kindly, if you're not the person about to speak, if you could just mute your mic, and when it's time to speak, then we will allow you to unmute. But just in the interest of all that will be said, we're just asking you please to remain muted until it's your turn to speak. And we're going to have a great evening. We want to welcome, as was indicated earlier, we have persons from all over. We have the London in the house, North Carolina. We have a number of places, and we will acknowledge them in their respective order. Over to you, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Lizzie. And yes, I share her point. We're here to learn. Knowledgeification, ladies and gentlemen. I'm teaching you new words along with all the knowledge you're getting. Knowledgeify, knowledgeification. We are getting knowledge. We're going to learn today. And we're going to share the information that we get with others. So we don't have to keep it to ourselves and make it a big secret. So me one or over me one can fly out. Let's make it something that is a custom in Jamaica for us to just know what is needed so that everybody can enjoy this kind of experience of moving around freely and not in fear. Now we have to get right into our program because it's super packed. So allow me to introduce, we want to hear a recording now from the Alumni USA Northeast, St. Catherine High School Alumni USA Northeast.
Hi, Jerry. Is President Dion Barnes on?
Let me check. President Barnes, are you here?
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, I know. Yeah, she's not recorded. She's coming live, which is awesome. Thank you.
Which is even better.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to the Global Connection webinar of 2022. I want to say this webinar is great to have concerning immigration. As we already know, we have had many students from our school decide to either pursue higher education and athletic endeavors abroad. Our support and understanding of the process of immigration is one key to our success of our young students. With a variety of speakers on this online webinar, I know many questions will be answered, and going forward, the additional support will be fantastic. Thank you, and God bless.
Yes, a lot of information. That's so important, Jerry, not just for us, but for those who are, helping to provide support to our athletes and so on, those who want to do academia. So this, again, we can't overemphasize the importance of the seminar. If your colleague is not on board, send out the link. We have made it the URL very accessible, so persons can just click on their phone and get the information.
Yes. And we want to write your questions down and send them in the chat while we're having the presenters present. So that way we can track the questions and pose them to the presenters at the end, and you will get your answers. So we don't have a lot of shuffling back and forth. So we'll keep it clean and nice, and we're going to go straight into it. The introduction of our first speaker. Let me make sure I'm following this. We do have a video recording, Nardia. From Nardia Teeth, right? So Nardia, could you please take over there?
Jamaica, land we love, full of so many beautiful places, memories, people, so rich in culture, resources, and opportunities that it is more than enough to want to bring the heart back home. So many of us have left our homeland seeking new opportunities and exploration of the world, and now many of us in the diaspora are trying to find ways to show our love for our homeland and those we left behind. It is this unfulfilled need of the Jamaican diaspora that has inspired the creation of our company, Integrated Diaspora Services Limited. We help bridge the gap between what is and what could be for many Jamaicans living and working abroad. We provide access to the knowledge and support they need to conduct business transactions in Jamaica from anywhere in the world. Our vision is to bring the hearts back home for the betterment of our homeland, Jamaica. Through our worldwide service providers and partnerships, we provide care services that are designed to meet the many needs of the diaspora, spanning from their commercial and regulatory needs to the very personal and intimate needs of their families back home. That is why
United States chooses IDS.
Ni hao, Jungo chinza IDS.
United Kingdom chooses IDS.
The Caribbean chooses IDS. Kazakhstan, IEST, Tanzania,
Afrika inachagua mawazo ili kuleta uzalendo.
Kenya inachagua IES.
Canada chooses IES.
Because it brings our hearts home.
Let us help you bring your heart back home to Jamaica in the ways that matter most, both to you and your loved ones.
Hearts back home to the things I know, to the place I know.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trt Pr, and I'm the CEO of Integrated Diaspora Services Limited. Integrated Diaspora Services is a registered company in Jamaica designed to assist the diaspora across the world do business in Jamaica, especially when they are unable to physically be here to do so.
Thanks so much, Nordia. We have muted that person and just reminding everyone to please mute. Thank you. Please go ahead, Ms. Tate.
All right. Integrated Diaspora Services is a registered company in Jamaica designed to assist the diaspora across the world to do business in Jamaica, especially when they are unable to physically be here to do so. In fact, we have extended and are extending our services through our various partnerships globally to assist our Jamaican and Caribbean nationals do business in the country they currently reside or in others they may be interested in doing business in. And so we're very happy and are always looking for opportunities like this collaborative initiative with the St. Catherine High alumni to address the various issues that affect our people at home and abroad. But we're not just talk or an information hub. We execute to the provision of practical solutions and handholding to ensure your needs are met, from immigration matters to registration of your businesses, getting your TRA or your birth certificate, so we can help you get that house, your mortgage, legal assistance, or the title for the land you want us to facilitate that construction for you on, to property management and the opportunity to earn off your investment. These are just a few of the services we would love to help you with and give you that peace of mind you so long for. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more of this great info. Follow us on social media and get in touch with us. Our information will be placed in the chat. We are looking forward to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. T. Hi, Dr. Dunkley. How you doing?
Doing just wonderful. Thank you.
CEO, you have made some very important points. First of all, I must say that's a beautiful presentation, that video presentation. I don't know if anybody else get affected by when they see the Jamaican flag and pictures of images of Jamaica, you get a little teary-eyed and choked up. It happened to you guys too?
Yeah, yes, Jerry, you feel like, boy, yeah, you know, you're a part of something big.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
Listen, I get emotional every time. I openly admit it, maybe just bawl when we see the flag and it just, woo! We get chills a while ago. That was a beautiful video. And you made some great points. You said we can follow us on your social media. So could you tell us the social media, please? Real quick.
We're on Facebook and we're actually live now on Facebook. So those who are able to join there can view. We're on Instagram, all social media channels, and all the information is also in the chat as well.
There you go. So folks, if you check the chat right now, you can click on the links that you see here for IDS and you can start following them on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. And I can guarantee you, Ms. T, that you will be getting a personal request from me because I have needs of your services.
Looking forward to serving you, sir.
Right. And Jerry, what is important as well is that it is integrated. So it's a one-stop shop. You don't have to go to so many different places to get different services. You can have everything that that will, just go into your needs, satisfy those immigration needs, whatever it is, you can have those things sorted out at once.
A prize for you, Lily. I have a prize for you here.
Thank you so very much.
Awesome stuff.
Jerry, you're not getting a prize.
No, it's all right. I'm going to get service. That's what I need. Service. Okay. We have to move right along because time is of the essence and we want to stay on course this evening. Dr. Karen Dunkley is up next with the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Representative Northeast USA. Dr. Dunkley, how you doing? There you go. Pretty smile and everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you, as always, to you and, of course, my St. Catherine High School brothers and sisters, my precious family, and to everyone, Jerry, who's joined us via social media as well as on Zoom. This is indeed exciting to have the partnership with Integrated Diaspora Services. Ms. Stabe and her team, Percival, they continue to be just such amazing diaspora partners. Mine is the pleasure to say greetings and salutations on behalf of the Jamaica Diaspora Northeast United States. Also, I know that this is a good time for us. We're having great weather here. It is good to see, of course, my wonderful, wonderful sister, Dr. Lily Thompson, and to see you, Jerry. However, in Philadelphia, that's where I live, we've had a bit of a tragedy. And so I just want to take a moment. We had a mass shooting and it occurred yesterday and 3 people died. So I just would like to send on behalf of the Jamaica Diaspora Northeast USA, because we're such a powerful force in Philadelphia, the home of pen relays with so much violence across the nation and globally, quite frankly, just not just another our hearts and prayers, but really to say that as a community, we stand in community against these acts of violence wherever they occurred. So just to let our thoughts known. On another note, we are excited to attend the Global Jamaica Diaspora Conference, June 14th to 16th, 2022. It's a hybrid conference in Jamaica. So as I bring you greetings from the 14 states in the Jamaica Diaspora Northeast United States, allow me to invite everyone here, Jerry and Dr. Lily Tomlinson, to our Global Jamaica Diaspora Conference. Please visit the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade's website, because while we are talking about the partnership with Jamaica at the conference, we're going to really address lots of the national development, education, health, and wellness. We know that crime and citizen security continues to be of concern to Jamaicans. We're going to talk about food and agriculture and really how we can move Jamaica forward. So on that note, visit us at mfaftjm.gov and register for the conference. And big up to my St. Catherine High School family. And Jerry and Dr. Tomlinson, did we shout out all of the members of the organizing committee for this event as yet?
No, not as yet. Not as yet.
Okay, well, let me big them up. May I big them up, right? I want to big up, we know him as Fleego, but certainly Henrik Bowrice. We call him Fleego. My great sister, Nadine Campbell Pearson, Dennis Cummins, Butcher B, Michael Cummins, aka Wabba, Anthony Johnson, aka Tula, Rowan Butler, aka Jigga, Dr. Thompson, Jerry, I think maybe it's you and I. Probably I wonder, Dr. Tomlinson, if you and I are the only ones without nicknames, but I was Tushy, actually.
Yes, they couldn't give me a nickname. They tried, it never worked.
It didn't work. We have Milade Holland, aka Fraggy. Carl Williams he does have a name. What is his name? Does anyone remember? AKA, we'll come back later, Colin Spence. Global. Of course, what was his name? Global. All right, our great Mel Warren, who just works so amazing. Cornelia Davis Moore, very supportive sister. She's been on a lot of our diaspora forums. And Miss Georgia Edwards, our songstress. So big up, enough respect, and thank you for having us. And again, if you need any, I would say, outreach for the diaspora around the sustainable development goals, any issues emanating from this forum, please let us know. Email us at nediaspora@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Karen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dunkley. And it's always a pleasure to have you on any platform, in any environment that we create for St. Catherine alumni. You bring such an energy and a warmth that it makes my job very easy. I don't have to be all too warm. It can just get crazy. Thanks to you. Ladies, we're going to push right on into our program because, as I said, it is packed. And we have some excellent presenters for you today.
Yes, and Jerry and Dr. Tomlinson, I have a video here and that really shows the presenters before we go to the lorry. So when you're ready, just let me know.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that our next speaker is Matunda. Is it right?
Mukulu.
Yeah, Mukulu. That's a name I would like to associate myself with, because I have a alter ego character called Umbuku. I will invite him to come and talk to you guys one day, okay?
I think for now, Jerry, we should focus on the presenter that's up next.
I know. That's what I'm just saying. I'm a brother. Me talk about Umbuku. You come. All right. Cool. Could we please play the recording to introduce our speaker, Mr. Matando Umbuku Mukulu?
This video actually introduces all the speakers, and then we'll invite him to come, and as he's on train, to tell him a little bit about himself. So that's an overview, and perhaps Jerry or Dr. Tomlinson, you could run through all of the speakers, and then we'll bring on our next
their respective time slots.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. So I'll go ahead, Jerry. So immediately after our speaker, Mr. Mukulu, we are going to be having Mr. Wayne Golding out of the United States. He's an attorney at law, and please note that after each speaker, there is 5 minutes for question and answer, so you'll be able to interact with our very knowledgeable presenters after they are finished doing their giving us all the wealth of information that we need to know. And then immediately after Mr. Golding, we're going to be having Rohan Dixon out of Canada as well. So we're going to have them in that order. And then after Rohan Dixon, we're going to be having Ms. Carol Saunders out of Jamaica, and she is from PICA, which is we call it PICA, which is the Citizens Immigration and Passport Agency. And again, just want to reiterate, we're asking you, please, if you are not the speaker, if you could just mute your mic. Thank you very much. Then immediately after Ms. Carol Sanders, we're going to be having Colette James from the Immigration Unit, again from PICA. All right, so we will go in that order. Dr. Dunkley, you just played the insert, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, yes, thank you.
Without any further ado, could we invite Mr. Mukulu from the United Kingdom to make his presentation?
Hi, good day to everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
And am I visible? Because I can't see myself.
No, you're not visible as yet, but we want to do it in the presses style, the alumni style. So we're just going to bring you on properly, sir. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Matula. We'll play this at the end. We're trying to bring you on.
All right,
go ahead, sir, but we're not seeing you. If you could put your video on, thank you.
Can you see me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, good day again, everyone. I'm conscious that some of us are in different parts, all of us, I should say, different parts of this wonderful globe. For those of us who are in the United Kingdom, good night to you. In America, or the North America, I should say, good afternoon. That encompasses Jamaica in my little world. So good afternoon. I'm Jamaican by birth and culture, and I happen to live and practice in the United Kingdom. I'm a barrister. Yeah, I'm a cricket fan. I don't like to talk too much about myself. I just find these things, people use them as an opportunity to boast. The only thing I like to boast about is that I have 3 daughters, and I am a cricket, diehard West Indies cricket fan. The immigration law, as it relates to the United Kingdom, I say at the outset, it is very much more dissimilar than similar to what obtains throughout North America. in many respects. I heard earlier this is an event that is put on by St. Catherine High School in association with the Diaspora network, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I suspect for students who want to study in the United Kingdom, the first thing I always tell persons out of Jamaica is this, that unlike North America, there isn't a scholarship culture in this country, certainly at the undergraduate level. Almost, and that is because up until around about 1999, most British nationals attended school, university, free of cost. Prior to Jamaica getting independence, and all of us grew up in Jamaica, those persons who you probably heard would have studied in in England at the time, majority of them would have studied free of cost, with the exception of some who got scholarships. But fast forward, the question is, what is it that the immigration rules require? In a nutshell, the first thing you need to do, apart from matriculating to get into the university, they operate a system of sponsorship here, where the institution that you apply to is deemed to be your sponsor. And you need that institution. It has to be an approved institution that's on the list. So if you selected an institution that's not on the list, you'll be out of luck. You won't be getting a visa to enter to study that institution because it's not on the list. And it's an approved. Most universities, if not all of them, are approved. And then you have to show that you have sufficient funds, not only to cover the tuition fees, but also to cover the living expenses. Now, the question some will ask is, am I allowed to work during the period that I'm a student? Yes, the rules certainly allows you to work a given number of hours during term time and out of term time. The theory is this, that you're not meant to use working to supplement your income as a way of getting through university. And I remember I said at the outset that it's very much dissimilar to, or at least what appears on the surface, to obtain in North America. So you demonstrate that you can meet the cost of tuition, which is running presently. The annual fees for overseas students can knock you at 15,000 to 12 to 15,000 per annum. And that's just the tuition. Then you have to look at the cost of living, how much it costs you to live. And so if you're working to supplement, pardon me?
Hold on, let me see if this.
Sorry, I think so.
Please continue.
Yes, no problem. And so the idea is that when you're accepted, you must not, and I keep repeating it, you must not use the work to supplement your thing. Does that mean that students do not do it? Of course they do, especially in the summer holidays, the longer holiday period. But strategically, it costs less for you to live outside of London if you were, say, in Cardiff in Wales or in Birmingham, any of the places outside of London. London is very, very expensive place to reside. Look for students. Look for the universities that are in the top 30 or so. The good universities. But once you finish your undergraduate studies, there certainly you have some leeway in which you can continue to work, by getting a visa. Now, especially if you go on to do graduate studies, there is a graduate, postgraduate. When I say postgraduate, I don't mean academical postgraduate. I'm referring to after you graduate, having done postgraduate work. you're allowed to stay in the country if you get a job. It's their way of ensuring and to say they're trying to keep the brightest and the best. The theory being, if you get to postgraduate level, certainly have some skills and some talents that they want to retain. Now, what about those persons who want to work in the United Kingdom? Now, since we're in 2020, since the United Kingdom has left the EU, they've sort of come up with a fairer system, because whilst they were in the EU from 1972, the EU personnel, citizens would get a sort of preference to come into the United Kingdom and work. That has changed drastically with exiting from the European Union. And so what they've done is to created this long list of skilled workers. And if you look on that list, you will see that a lot of persons from our country can fit into those categories. And what you will have to demonstrate is that not only do you fit and get into that category to get a work visa, but also that the income, the salary that is being advertised, it cannot be less than, I think, about £26,500 per annum. So you might be on that list. The job that you're applying for might be on that list. Say a farm manager, for example. But the salary that is being offered is significantly lower than the 26,500. You might not qualify. There are some exceptions within that where you can get a job that is paying less than the 26,000. You need the Home Office, the department that deals with immigration, to sort of allow you to take up that job. Once you're in employment and you get that work visa, again, it's a sponsorship system that works. The employer, the prospective employer who's taking you on, will have to provide you with, let's loosely call it a letter. Let us loosely call it a sponsorship letter, but it effectively sets out what it is that you're going to do, how much the salary is, and where you'll be located. Now, once you've done that job and you say you've had a work permit for 5 years, you can apply for what in America or Canada would be called resident status. Here it's called indefinite leave to remain. And once you get indefinite leave to remain, you move from that onto citizenship. There are different time periods that applies. But the thing to take away from it is that if you have a work permit for 5 years, you can then get a settled status in the United Kingdom. Now, one of the unique things about coming to this country is what they call the health surcharge. Healthcare in this country is free at the point of use. It's free at the point of use for everyone who has a right to be in the country. However, post about 2000 or 2012, they introduced a system whereby persons who are applying to come into the country has to pay what's called an immigration health surcharge, except visitors. Visitors do not have to pay that. What it does is it ensures that you have access to the health service as a student, as someone who's on a work permit. It allows you to, but you have to pay for it. It's not cheap, £500 to £1,000 to £1,000, 500. What it does, they say that's the sort of minimum cost of ensuring that you, as a prospective user of the healthcare, will have access to the health service. It doesn't mean that your usage and access will be limited. If you want a brain surgery or you want cancer treatment, it will be given to you as long as you have paid your NHS and National Health Service health charge. But it is a significant part of the costs of anyone who's making an immigration application, because your application will not be processed you can't make the application without making that payment. When you make the applications to enter online, they ask you to make that payment, and the amount that you pay is determined by the type of visa that you are applying for. So, of course, we've said students, and we've spoken quite briefly about persons who want a work permit. Again, if you are going through the process of being married to someone who's a citizen in this country and the person resides in the United Kingdom, in a nutshell, that person has to demonstrate that he or she is earning an income of no less than £18,600. It's a minimum income threshold. And the theory is that if it is that person is earning £18,600 and you're in a relationship with that person, you're married to that person, that is the sort of income that they say is necessary so that you do not use public resources. What if you're coming to if, for example, you're married and you're coming with a child, you're coming to meet someone who's you're coming to settle with your spouse, and you also have a child, you have to, in addition to that 18,600, you have to also show that there's an additional 3,800 for that child. And if there are two children, an additional on top of an additional 2,400 is what will be required to demonstrate. How do you go about demonstrating all this? It's really the person who you're married to, they show their income. And what if you are earning less than the 18,600, but you have some savings? Your savings can be used to supplement that. Can you be used to supplement that? And there's a way to calculate that. It's not just any savings or any amount of savings. The savings has to be of a certain amount. The thinking behind all of that, ladies and gentlemen, is to ensure that persons who enter the United Kingdom because they've been married to someone, that they're coming to live with someone who, in the sort of introductory phases, that person will not then have to resort to access to resources, public resources, so as to facilitate you being in the country. Outside of that, again, you don't need to be married to, if you're in a relationship akin to marriage, for example, you can show that someone has been your partner for 2 years prior to making the application. And this applies to heterosexual and non-heterosexual relationships. And outside of those, if you you want to visit the country, you'll get a visa for 6 months. Visitors do not pay the NHS health surcharge, but when you get a visa for 6 months, again, you need a sponsor, i.e. someone who you're coming to stay with, and that person gives the Home Office an undertaking that he or she will accommodate you. But in the first instance, you need to demonstrate that you have the resources that, as a visitor, are sufficient, such that you will not have to resort to public resources. I've not understood that part of the rule, because, to be very frank with you, if you're a visitor, there's no way you can access the public resources. You just can't, because you don't have the documentary evidence to support any application that you will make. But so it is. But you need to demonstrate that you have somewhere to stay, be it a hotel or with a family member. That's where your sponsor comes in. As a visitor, you're allowed to stay here for 6 months. So if you are from what is called a non-visa country, such as Grenada, St. Lucia, a lot of the Eastern Caribbean countries are non-visa national countries. There was a time when Jamaica, certainly before 2000, Jamaica was a non-visa national country, but all of that has just disappeared for us at this stage. So those are the sort of principal gateways. There are other gateways, for example, for those who are coming as entertainers. There's a separate visa for that, where you have to demonstrate one, again, a sponsor is required, where you're coming to perform and so forth. And those visas are quite restrictive. You can only do what is on that visa. And a word also for those who want to come as visitors, the rule again is you're not allowed to do any paid or unpaid work. You have to adhere to the conditions. If you're found wanting, as in having breached terms, back to the students, if you're applying as a student, as I say, the first real thing that you need to check out is whether or not the institution that you want to attend, is it on the list of approved providers? If it's not, do not apply. And that information is on the .gov website. It's there for everyone to see, and you can check it out. But most public universities, if not all public universities, are on that website. And most universities in the United Kingdom are public universities, probably about 3 or so private universities in the entire United Kingdom. Because as I said, for a long time, education is seen as a public good in the classical sense in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mukulu. I'm very intrigued by how many hoops we have to jump through. Is there any questions? Anyone has any questions? Have you posted any in the chat? I haven't seen any.
Jerry, I know on social media, coming in from our Facebook is a question about the immigration requirements. Would the attorney here, what is his feedback on which country has an easier immigration process for study as well as for residency through a spouse? Is it the United Kingdom or the United States? And if so, what would he suggest is the timeline to be expected for filing either as a student or as a spouse? Thank you.
I can't compare what time it takes to apply, for example, to the United States as a student. What I do say, I can, from my general knowledge as it relates to applying as a spouse, the time frame here is much quicker than in the United States, because in the United Kingdom you don't have that equivalent of filing for. I don't know if it's just a loose term. I'm not sure if it's a legal term in the United States. I'm not called to the bar there, but typically you make an application here to join a spouse. Say what month we're in. We're in June. You make an application in June. But you get to probably about August or so, September, you get a response. It's not a long waiting process, as I oftentimes or sometimes listen to the American equivalent programs, and people are waiting for a long time. Probably I'm even misunderstanding it, but doesn't take that long. The same applies for student visas. It doesn't take a long time to get one. The most important thing is that you have the funds that are required, one, and two, the institution is one that's approved. The reason why it doesn't take a long time as a student is because you're not allowed to apply more than I think 3 months before your course starts. So there's an inbuilt recognition that it has to be dealt with in a sort of expeditious manner, because you're not allowed to apply, say, in January when your course starts starting in September. They don't encourage that.
Wonderful, thank you. And while we're waiting, Dr. Tomlinson and Jerry, on our next question, may I share the introductory video for this very wise and learned attorney as well?
Yes, please.
Matondo Mukulu. Matondo Mukulu is a Jamaican national, a practicing barrister in England and Wales, specializing in public and immigration law, and a forever supporter of West Indies cricket. I present to you your speaker, Matondo Mukulu.
Thank you so much. Another question that's coming in via our Facebook. We do have, I know we have questions in the chat. I'm wanting to know under what circumstances can Jamaican nationals apply for asylum in the United Kingdom? A question from our social media.
Thank you. First, we need to remind ourselves is that who can apply for an asylum, as an asylum seeker, sorry. You're applying for refugee status. And who is a refugee? Someone who is fleeing persecution for specified reason or reasons. And you can demonstrate that the country from which you're fleeing or the country to which you're a national cannot and is not willing to provide you with that protection. Now, the UN convention that deals with this is the same convention that applies across the board. Now, the real issue is at what stage do you make that application? It is always good to make that application first and foremost. The first time you set foot in the country that you're seeking asylum in, i.e. when you present yourself at the border of port of entry, because that triggers an obligation, one, for that country to organize for you to be interviewed, and it places you in a better position, because one of the questions that is usually asked at the appeal stage is, why didn't you make the application on the first time that you presented yourself? If it is that your application, having gone through the process of the interview, if the application fails, you do get the right to appeal. Now, where do you stay during that process of appealing? If it is that you've entered, you're at the port of entry. If you're at the port of entry, you'll be detained in immigration detention. Sometimes you go through a fast track appeal system. Now, if you have a sensible lawyer, your lawyer will make an application for you to be released into the United Kingdom. Sometimes you're given temporary admission. Pending the resolution of your asylum application. There are various grounds in which you can apply. It's for you and whomever is advising you to frame it. It's just not only the case that you're fleeing persecution in the sense of you're in a war-torn civil war place. Persons from Jamaica, outside of the cohort of persons who have different sexual orientation, I've done cases where persons have, certainly females, have experienced rape because of their political affiliation, and I've advanced the cases of that nature before, because that the persecution that the person would have faced in those circumstances is the rape, and that person or persons were being targeted because of their political affiliation. And we were able to demonstrate the lack of protection and the risk to that person if they were to return. Now, one of the things that you have to be concerned about when you're advancing your asylum claim is this. You have to focus on, if you're asked the question, well, you're living in Kingston and you say that's where you're being persecuted, can there be internal relocation? I.e., why can't you go to the other end of the island to reside? That's called internal relocation. So you got to be mindful of that and how you're going to respond to that sort of question. If that question is thrown back at you, which invariably it is thrown at you, because no asylum claim can be seriously considered if there's no consideration of a internal relocation.
Okay, thank you very, very, very much.
Explained.
That's beautifully explained. We would love to ask you more questions, but we do have to stay on course as time it relates to time.
Right.
So
Jerry,
yes.
Boy, I know time is of the essence, but man, this is the hottest ticket in town. We have almost 100 people on the Zoom and so many more on Facebook. Can we ask the 2 questions in the Zoom? One from Milade Holland, and then certainly Natasha Johnson, several questions, and attorney, just maybe your headline responses, sir. Thank you.
No problem. A process to file for my daughter who was born in Jamaica, but I have a British passport. The question is, where is she living, the mother, and how old is the child?
All right, so I'll be like that, so thank you. So we're gonna ask you to drop that in, the question in for those joining by social media. It's what's the process to file for my daughter who was born in Jamaica, but the parent has a British passport? Please drop the information in the chat. Attorney Maluki, what do you need to know? Where does the parent reside? What country?
Where is the parent presently, and where is the child? In a nutshell, if the parent is in the UK, or even if the person is in Jamaica, but the child is under 18, the parent should take some steps to get that person naturalized.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just the child lives in Jamaica, but the parent lives in London.
But and the parent is British, yes?
He's got a British passport.
Yeah, the parent is British
passport holder, yeah.
And the child lives in England?
In Jamaica.
And under 18?
10 years old.
Yeah, you can apply to get the child in the country. You can also apply for the child to be naturalized. Now, it all depends on how you yourself gain British nationality. There's a question of how you yourself gain British nationality.
Through marriage.
Yes, and at the time when your child was born, were you British national? Did you have indefinite leave?
Yes.
Yeah, your child then will gain your nationality, but just give us a call.
Yes.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
No problem. The second question, hello, and thank you.
Attorney Maluki, I will help you with this one. We have a question here about scholarships for talented or gifted persons who are volunteering in the United Kingdom, and also the posture of the United Kingdom government on shifting the foreign affairs matter for refugees to Rwanda. So what I'm going to do, Natasha, I'm going to send you a private message for my counterparts in the United Kingdom who can put you in touch with some scholarships. I know it's Maluki, his focus is on immigration. So turn it over to you, Jerry, and of course, my good friend, Lily.
Wow, quite an enlightening session, Jerry.
Wow, I never did that thing about England, but now I consider it.
I'm right behind you. Oh, wow,
Lily,
wow.
Please introduce our next speaker.
So our next speaker we're having such a great lineup. The next speaker that we have is Mr. Wayne Golding out of the United States, and he's an attorney at law. We're going to be having the introduction being played for us just now. Dr. Dunkley, is it being played?
A radio host, a volunteer. Wayne Golding is an accomplished attorney in the Florida State Courts and the United States Federal Courts. He is the founder of the Golding Law Group, PLC. Mr. Golding is also a founding and contributing member of the Jamaica Diaspora Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Wayne Golding.
Good afternoon, Mr. Golding.
Good afternoon, all. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. And it's always good to have good information to pass around. It's interesting that we're going to talk on the issue of immigration here in the United States. The first thing I would want to address is that too often we have persons who are experts who are not qualified. What do I mean by that? Here in the United States, part of the biggest problem that we see as immigration attorneys, and my clientele is 90% Jamaican, is that people take actions either by self-help or by bad advice that leads them to a point of what we call no return, where it is that they cannot get their immigration status straightened out because of some missteps and misadvice that they receive. The immigration laws in the United States is a large body of law that has really changed over the years since the early establishment of the codes and legal standards that govern immigrants coming to this country, whether they're coming as visitors, whether they're coming as temporary workers, whether they're coming here to permanently live. And what it has done over the years, it has generated a list of forms that people usually fill in to try and get immigration benefits, whether it's to get a visitor's visa out of the embassy in Kingston, or it's to attain residency status once they're here in the United States. These forms and every box on these forms represent a legal consequence, meaning it's not just guessing an answer or filling out an answer, or in some cases, omitting information. Because the cornerstone of the immigration laws here is that anytime you apply for an immigration benefit, no matter how far down the line you are, they always go back to the beginning to check to make sure all the information comports with what you're now telling them. And we've seen so many cases of people who have gone, for example, to the US Embassy to apply for a visa, and they give information that is not correct. And for some reason it is not caught, and they get through getting that visa issued, whether it's for a green card or whether it's for a visitor, whether it's for a student, or whether it's for business. And eventually that information is stored, but it catches up to them. And what happens is sometimes, for example, somebody will come to the United States as a visitor on a visitor's visa. They end up changing their status while they're here, whether they end up being here as an overstay, or they end up, for example, getting married to a US citizen who then applies for them. And they go back through every piece of that application. And they go back to that initial visitor's visa application and they see where the person put, for example, that they were married or that they were coming to the United States just for a visit. And within a certain amount of time, they attempt to change their status to be a permanent resident. All these things matter. And the reason I bring this up is that there are a lot of folks around who profess to be what we call, in the Spanish community here, they call it abogados, which means lawyer, but they're not lawyers, or immigration consultants, who for the most part may have good intentions, but because they don't understand what the law means, they often provide erroneous information. And this information, as I said, comes back to haunt so many people. Now, you have several ways of people migrating to the United States. It can be, first and foremost, most popular is a family-based petition. And you have several categories of these petitions. And it ranges from a US citizen parent filing for children, or US citizen child filing for parents, or a permanent resident filing for certain relatives. Because when we talk about filing and petitioning for folks, there are only people who fall into certain categories can be filed for: children, spouses, parents. Sometimes people think grandparents can file for grandchildren. No. So these are different categories that are in the family-based categories. You also have employment-based categories where, for example, people who are establishing businesses here in the United States can self-file after establishing that business, or they can do what is called intra-company transfers. You also have those people who are able to come to the United States based on work visas. For example, people who come to do work in the hotel industry, entertainment industry, they call those H1, H2B visas. And there's a special process that you have to go through. You also have situations where people are coming in, for example, adoptions. And this is a very tricky area also, because there's a 2-year residency requirement when you adopt a child in order for you to file for them in the United States. But it all depends on how they're adopted. If they're adopted as an orphan, per se, where they have no parents and they're the charge of the government, then you don't have that 2-year residency wait. But if they're adopted like from a relative or adopted out of a private adoption situation, there's a 2-year wait. And sometimes when people don't check it out, they go through these adoptions and then they find out that they cannot make that 2-year residency requirement because, of course, a child lives in Jamaica, you live abroad in the United States. It's impossible to meet that residency requirement. So that's why it's so important to consult with an immigration attorney, somebody who's licensed and practices immigration law that can work out the nuances of these situations. For example, a child that is a relative, it might be easier to get them a visitor's visa for them to come to the United States, and then you proceed with the adoption here in the United States. So there are so many nuances to immigration law. Now, as we're moving into the modern era, there are certain things that have definitely changed. A change in terms of administration and rules that govern migration. For example, with the last president we had, he rolled back a lot of immigration benefits that were available before. For example, they wanted to make sure that you could qualify financially and educationally to come to the United States. They imposed certain restrictions. And I don't know if you all remember the term that he did not want anybody from what they call, and excuse my language, shithole countries to come here. And that was established in some of the policies that they put in place. You basically had to fill out a checklist to make sure you qualified financially, educationally and all of that to come to the United States. When before, as long as you were sponsored and you did not have any disqualifying criminal record or background, you were able to come to the United States. Well, the new administration that came in changed that policy, did away with that policy, and so we are back now to the normal standards. However, one change that happened during the last few years, and we have to realize because we're living in modern times and technology, is that your social media background is something that they look at now when they're thinking of establishing a visa for you, or when you apply to procure a visa, you must provide them with your social media handles and stuff so they can do a background check. They not only do criminal background checks, but now they're looking at your social media profile. So we encourage people to be very careful what you put on social media, because they could deem you to be inadmissible to the United States. The other factor that is positive in immigration news here in the United States is that with this new administration, we had a policy in place where somebody overstayed in the United States between 6 months and a year, and somebody applied for them to be a permanent resident, they would be banned from coming into the United States for 3 years. If that person overstayed for more than 1 year, then they would be banned for coming back into the United States for 10 years. And so we came up with a common adage, which everybody used to hear, where somebody comes home to Jamaica to pick up their paperwork and they get stuck in Jamaica. Although everything is in order, because they overstayed, they were banned from actually coming back, although everything was approved. That was a penalty for being in the United States longer than you were supposed to. Now, what has happened with this new administration is that a lawsuit was actually filed in court over this particular issue. And instead of fighting it, the administration now, there's a negotiation process going on with the plaintiffs to see how they can best address this issue. Because what they were finding is that families were being broken apart, people were being separated. And the key to immigration law in the United States was supposed to be family reunification, allowing pathways for family to reunify with their family that they had to leave behind, to sponsor them to come to the United States. So that's one positive thing that has happened in immigration news here. Now, I also want to emphasize, easiest way for somebody to change their status here in the United States is possibly to get married to a United States citizen and use that process to be filed for. However, I must emphasize that any such marriage must be a good faith marriage, not a marriage for immigration document, okay?
I think we're waiting on Attorney Golden to join us. Yeah.
Yeah, he just slipped off.
Great.
Yeah, we bring him back because he's talking the things, man.
And while he's coming back, Jerry and Lilith, and Ian, Pastor Ian is saying that this point about the social media is absolutely because we're so frivolous sometimes, and we do some things, and now this is now a point of interest for those of us applying, as well as I would imagine if we're filing, we're attempting to sponsor individuals.
Yeah, I think that's so important. The whole matter of the digital footprint is something that everyone needs to be very much aware of, because, you know, you did something 5 years ago and think, oh, that was just a moment of excitement, only to know when you're trying to make decisions, really critical, you know, stages of your life, then this thing comes to confront you. So if there are parents on board with us, which I'm sure that they are, we need to be saying to our kids, always be mindful, you know, of what you're doing on social media, whatever those spaces are, you must be very aware and focused. So I see Mr. Attorney at Law Wayne Golden is back with us.
Yes, I'm so sorry I got cut off there.
You weren't deported, sir.
No, you were not.
Absolutely not.
We checked your social media, Attorney, and decided
that you are safe.
Okay.
So there are many hoops to jump through to get immigration benefits in the United States. But the bottom line is that immigrants have always come to this country to help to build this country. And as I was saying before, part of the policy of this country was family reunification. Now they are moving away from that a little bit to wanting the brightest and the best in the United States also. So for people with certain categories of education and skills, they're opening up opportunities for those folks to come here that they did not have usually. For example, nurses and teachers, engineers, software engineers, people high skilled. They are opening up more opportunities for those people to come back or come to the United States to live permanently. Also, those who come here as students and have completed their studies, there's oftentimes an opportunity for them to stay here and practice. They call it an OPT time period where you're able to stay here and practice your profession. And in some cases, you can possibly be sponsored by a company or a firm here. But the key for people coming into the United States these days is do not violate your immigration status. Do not overstay even 1 day, because it can have detrimental effects to your future here in the United States. For those who live in the United States permanently, for example, and have a green card, there are some crucial issues that they should bear in mind. One, under no circumstances are you supposed to misrepresent yourself to anyone that you're a United States citizen, anyone. Two, do not vote under any circumstances in this country if you're not a qualified United States citizen. That can be a death nail to any further immigration benefits and can also lead to deportation and prison. We talked about the good faith marriage. Also, please make sure that when you enter into the marriage, you document your marriage, as simple as you take it, because they will inquire into your marriage status. They will ask you to produce not only documents, but they will also, and they can also do what we call a bed check, where they can turn up at your house 3 o'clock in the morning to knock on that door and to make sure that you do have your spouse, you're living with your spouse. We've seen many cases where people have tried to do what they call quote unquote business marriages, and it has backfired to the point where people have been sentenced to prison for fraudulent marriages. So again, my advice, generally speaking, is that if you do have an immigration issue or you do have questions, please, it's not a DIY situation. It's very tempting for people to say, let me just fill out this form and send it in. Always spend the little money that it costs you to do a consultation with an immigration attorney. Even if you don't use them to do your processing, at least you'll be able to get some good direction and advice, because immigration is very unforgiving, and there's no statutes of limitations where you say, well, a certain amount of time runs out, they can't use this against me. It's a lifetime record. And the last thing I'd tell folks who have been involved with the immigration system in the United States, any at all, and they're unsure of what their past was in terms of documentation, they can use a process called the Freedom of Information Act, whether you're a green card holder, whether you're out of status, but you can request a copy of your complete immigration file. So you can have that for your records, because I cannot tell you how many folks and clients that we've had, and we've asked them simple questions. When was the first date that you entered the United States? And they cannot remember. When was the first time you applied for a visa to come to the United States? Because these questions will have to be answered moving forward and asking for immigration benefits. So with that, I'll just cede my time, and I'll be willing to take any questions that are out there.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Golding. Again, the greatest enemy of knowledge is ignorance. You know, so it's important that we make sure that we're in the know. And this afternoon, that's the objective of the St. Catherine Alumni Global Connection series. This is our first series to make sure that as much as possible, we seek to have the information available to whoever needs it. But very, very, very interesting facts there, especially I know, Jerry, you're interested in the part about the checking of the bed partners. So you have to make sure that if you're duly supposed to be in the States in bed, you're present. So I just wanted to remind you of that, sir.
Thank you for the reminder. I have never been absent from bed.
So
let's get the questions to the chat, please, and from on social media, so that we can hit them, because I see them flooding in. It's quite a few. Karen, do you have the questions for us from social media first?
Absolutely. So we're actually going to do a little flip and then go to the chat, and then we'll come right into social media, because I know our participants are messaging me saying, make sure you ask my question.
Or else we'll be held in contempt. So Dr. Golden, we'll just take them from the Zoom chat, Dr. Dunkley.
Absolutely. And in fact, Attorney Golden, we can certainly bring to you the first question from DM Barnes. What is the opt-out process for students who finish high school in the United States? Dion Barnes is the president of the Northeast St. Catherine Alumni Association. And as you're thinking of your answer, Attorney Golden, we'll welcome Ms. Norma Jarrett, president of the Old Farmers Alumni Association, as well as our own president at home in Jamaica of St. Catherine High. Thank you so much. Attorney Golden.
Yes, the OPT process would not apply to students finishing high school. It's people with bachelor's or graduate degrees, or those who have come for skilled professional training. So high school students would not be eligible for the OPT program.
I see, and I think President Dion was asking, is there any agency we know that helps them? And she's saying who finished school in the USA, and she's saying who finished college in the USA, not necessarily high school.
Okay, there's no agency that deals with that OPT. It's just a process that the student has to apply for months, at least 6 months or so before their course or time is finished. And it goes through a company. They have to apply to a company who's willing to take them on in that role. And they get paid by the company during that process. So it's with their initiative, if they are finishing up their degree, then they can initiate that application process through the USCIS. But they have to identify the employer that's going to take them on for that optional practical training.
Thank you so very much. And on that note, Attorney Golden, we're going to ask you, we have several more questions before you go off. If we are certainly allowed to, if you would tell us the contact details for you, as well as Attorney Makulugu, if you're still here. I hope I stated that name, pronounced it correctly. If you could also drop your contact details in the chat. And the other question is around the current policies on H4, obtaining an EAD card, an EAD card.
Well, H4 is a temporary visa that has a specific expiration date, and it comes through employment. Now, the EAD card is an employment authorization document that if you're being processed, for example, for adjustment of status, say a spouse filed for you, or you're adjusting status through your employer filing for you, then the EAD is part of that process. So it's an affirmative application that has to be made as long as you're qualified. Not everybody, if you're in an H1, H2B category, that is your work permit. There's no necessity for you to have an EAD card. However, if you're in a category where your employer is filing for you, then you will get the opportunity to apply for an employment card.
Thank you so much, Attorney Golden. And of course, our chat via social media and Zoom is lit. We are here with Integrated Diaspora Services and CEEN TV. CEEN TV broadcast in the tri-state area and Canada on Altis, Verizon Bios, Bell, and Rogers. They air local content and dramas, the nightly news, and live sports. So Attorney King, as you could see, Attorney Golden, pardon me, that we are streaming globally and we have so many questions. Here's a question coming in from someone. What is the easiest method to get a Jamaican student with no United States connection to study in the United States?
Well, like was discussed by the attorney from England, it's quite similar. You have to first be accepted into a college here, an accredited institution here. Your criteria for acceptance, of course, depends on how your documentation from Jamaica is analyzed. They have what they call a CVIS program where they analyze whether you have 5 CXCs, whether you, back in my days, it was GCs and stuff like that. And they will analyze, and the documentation would be sent to that school. The school will then look at it to see if they can accept you based on your academic qualifications. Then they would issue what is called an I-20. But the burden is on you to prove that, 1, you can pay for your education, 2, you can pay for your accommodations. And what usually happens is that people can use friends and relatives in the United States who can vouch for them and provide documentation to show that they can meet the burden if the student cannot meet it. As far as work, you cannot work for the first year while you're here on a student visa in the United States. The second year you can apply to work, but you have to establish some sort of hardship why you need to work. And again, the intent of giving you a student visa is to say you can come to this country to study as long as you can pay for yourself. And then with all this online thing happening, what happened during COVID is that a lot of people were in danger of losing their student visa because it actually states that you have to be in a classroom setting here in the United States. And there were some people, of course, that had gone back home, and when COVID hit, they were actually in virtual situations. And the then administration had actually come up with a rule that those people were not supposed to be continued on their student visa status. Thankfully, a lawsuit was brought, and the courts ruled that that was not proper. So they reinstated these people on their student visa status, and they were allowed to do classes virtually. But be aware, if you do have a student visa, it is required that you maintain your status here. You attend school, you do not drop out of school, because you will lose that student visa and then become illegal here in the United States.
Thank you so very much, Attorney Golden. And wow, we have hit a really big point. We're over 100 persons attending via Zoom. So thank you for staying with us. Welcome if you have joined us on social media. Right now, we are talking immigration matters. We heard from Attorney Makulu out of the United Kingdom, and now we are hearing from the very erudite Attorney Golden in the United States. Attorney Golden, here's a question. What needs to happen? Can a person file for extension on OPT without job sponsorship?
The short answer to that is no. You have to have that OPT in place. It's the OPTs that is the automatic extension of your stay, usually for a year. So you don't have to file for an extension if you have OPT. Once your student visa, your term is of study is done, they call it DOS, duration of study, is done, then you have a certain amount of time to leave the country under that visa. There are those people who sometimes have a student visa and also have what we call a B1, B2 visitors visa, but you have to leave to satisfy the requirements before you can come back in another category. So the OPT is actually your extension, and you have to put the things in place to make sure that OPT is granted, including having an employer.
Thank you so very much. And this question is coming in from Miss Samuels. Is it possible for a Jamaican citizen living in China to immigrate to Canada, the United Kingdom, and or United States directly from China? So Attorney Golden, we're going to ask you to give us the Cliff Notes response and then invite Attorney Makulu from the United Kingdom to give his Cliff Note response as well.
All Jamaican citizens need visas to come to the United States. So if you're immigrating from China, you still would need a visa to enter the United States, whether it's a visitor's visa or in some other category.
Thank you so much. Attorney Makulu, are you still with us? If not,
the answer to the question is you can make the application from China. Because it will be assessed at the relevant High Commission. That is, well, in China, I'm sure they have an High Commission there. The answer to that is yes.
Thank you so very much. And we're just going to ask you just to hang with us a little bit here. We have a question, Attorney Golden, that is asking, what is the process? Can you talk a little bit about the process for someone with an L category visa to file for their spouse? And how long does the process take in the United States?
Well, the L category visa, just to explain, it's what we call a business category.
You're coming a little choppy on our end, Attorney Golden. I'm not sure for.
Okay.
Yes, much better.
Yeah. All right. So the L category is for a business visa, and usually spouses who want to accompany the person who has the benefit of the L1 can apply for what they call an L2 derivative visa. And it's a similar application process after the L1 is granted, or even simultaneously with the application for the L1. So the short answer is yes. A spouse can accompany, but they still would have to meet all the qualifications to make sure that they're admissible into the United States.
Thank you so much. So at this point, wow, we're going to turn over to our host. We're going to ask you to continue the conversation, and our host will formally thank Attorney Golden, who is my good colleague on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council as well. If you would like additional responses, information, reach out to Attorney Golden. Email is in the chat, wgolden, for those of us joining on social media, at goldenlawgroup.com, and Attorney Makulu, also in the chat, info@amitychambers.com, info@amitychambers.com, 074-955-99371. That's a United Kingdom number. Attorney Golden representing the United States. Thank you. Over to you, Jerry Benswick and Lily.
Yes, I wanna say quick thanks to Attorney Makulu, or Barrister Makulu. He's over there in England, and it's probably something near midnight now. So he's probably jumping off the bed to make sure he can wake up tomorrow morning to work. And Attorney Golden, I have a question that was not in the, well, I put it to you privately, but somebody asked me to ask this question. If you're close to your expiration date of your green card, let's say about 4 to 5 months, is it wise to travel to Jamaica during that time?
Yes, it is. Your green card, and especially with COVID, they are giving some leeway with people with close dates on their green card. But make sure the date that you're traveling back is before the expiration of your green card. If not, you will have to go through probably a rigorous process to get what is called a travel letter from the United States Embassy in order to travel back in. And that also goes for people who lose their documents, lose their green card when they're traveling. They have to go through that process. But word of advice, I always tell people, keep your documents 6 months or more before expiration. You should apply to make sure you have up-to-date documents, because you don't want the hassle. And admission into the United States really starts when you go to that airline ticket counter in Jamaica, where they would look at your documents to make sure that you're within the date range, because they don't understand the immigration laws, but they can be fined. The airlines can be fined if they allow somebody to travel into the United States without proper documentation. So they often err on the side of caution and put you through these hoops. So it's unnecessary. So make sure you keep your documents up to date.
That is great. And final, can the spouse of an H1 apply for an EAD?
Generally, no. H1 category, you know, as I said, it's very limited. And usually it's so temporary because you don't come in usually for a long time. Usually the H1, it runs about 6 months in terms of the visa time. So generally we don't see a lot of that kind of request because people are coming in as temporary workers. Usually they're coming in categories where, as I said, it's seasonal work and all these things. So we don't see a lot of people trying to tag on to an H1 visa, so to speak.
Thank you, sir. We're not asking you no more questions. We are going to see.
Right. I'm sure there are many more questions in the chat,
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
And I mean, good questions. Good questions indeed. You know, it's so important to get those questions out. As Benjamin Franklin said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And so many times because of ignorance, persons have to go into this path where they overspend, pay for the same service twice. So, you know, we really want to thank our presenters out of the UK, and we heard from the United States, and now we're in Canada. So we have
going to Canada, baby. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone. It was a pleasure joining you.
Thank you very much, Attorney at Law Wayne Golding. Thank you so very much. And we know the familiar voice right here in Jamaica, Dr.
Wayne Golding.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. So now we move on over to Canada, and our presenter is ready and ready to go, roaring to go. So welcome, Mr. Ron Dixon, and Dr. Duncan will play the intro for us.
You, the speaker, Rohan Dixon, licensed immigration consultant, an international recruitment agent for the 4 colleges, Durham, Mohawk, Niagara, and Keano, a commissioner of oaths for the province of Ontario, a business member of the Jamaica Canadian Association, director of one of the top 3 immigration businesses of 2021, Rosan Immigration Consultant Services Limited, based in Ontario, Canada. I present to you Rohan Dixon.
Welcome, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Oh, you're muted. Let's unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I must say it was an easy decision to say yes to Nordia to come and present today. After her generous check that she offered, I could not turn it down. But I must say, it's my pleasure, and I'm also jealous. I need to talk to the Wolmer's Old Boys and Old Girls Association. We need to have something like this for our graduates as well, and Diaspora members around the globe. So I must say,
Presses will always lead the way. Presses will always lead the way.
You can thank us. You can thank us.
As the oldest English-speaking high school, you know, oldest high school in the English-speaking Caribbean, you know, we really are jealous of what's happening here. But I'm happy to be here, and I am. and it's truly a pleasure. I want to start off as the only non-attorney that is speaking tonight. I just want to start off by saying that in Canada, there are 3 persons. Are you hearing me clearly? Sorry, there's some. Yes. So I want to start off as the only non-attorney presenting tonight to clarify that in Canada, there are 3 categories of persons that are able to practice immigration law. And these are trained immigration consultants. There are notary publics of Quebec, and there are also immigration lawyers. So those are the only persons that are recognized and are trained in immigration law and are able to practice immigration law. All right. Some of the policies that the attorney from the UK shared is similar to kind of the principles in which Canada operates, but I'd like to share a slideshow if I may be given sharing privileges. Can I?
Yes, just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. Thank you. So I'm actually in Jamaica now, sharing. Just came for a little short visit. My hotel room Wi-Fi is not the best, but I'll just try and make do with what we have here. Can everybody see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here. Let me try and get on one screen. Let's see here if it goes there. Wait. All right, here. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to move this bar out of the way so I can. Okay, great.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dixon. Can this presentation be sent to us afterwards? Is it possible?
Just to answer that, once if you did not register for the webinar, we're going to ask you please to put your email address in the chat. Everyone will be sent a recording. So once we have your email address, you'll be sent a recording.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Okay, all right, let me just get this out of the way here so I can. All right, so pathways to permanent residency. All right, as shared before in the introduction, I'm Rohan Dixon, Jamaican by birth. I immigrated to Canada 5 years ago and have been involved in immigration law. I came here, I was seeking information on how to come to Canada, and I couldn't find any good information, couldn't find any good sources of information, and I decided to just go and study it myself, and here I am today, presenting across different to different groups all across the world, and and immigrating to Canada, and it is my pleasure to be here today. So pathways to permanent residency, let's get right into it. So there are 3 main categories to permanent residence in Canada. There is the economic class, family class, and the refugee class. So the family class speaks to those persons who are they have spouses who they are married to somebody who's a Canadian permanent resident or a citizen, and that person wants to sponsor them. That is what falls on the family class of immigration. There's also those persons who have children. They have children who they themselves were sponsored, but they have children that they did not carry to Canada with them, and they want to sponsor them as well. They will fall under the family class of immigration, as well. There are also those persons who would, by virtue of their, sorry, my words are slipping me here, but right. So the family class has to do with, yeah, right, parents and grandparents. So we do have also those category of persons who have their parents or their grandparents, and they want them to join them in Canada, and they will also fall under family class. So family class mainly deals with spousal sponsorships, parental sponsorships, and parent-grandparent sponsorship, right? But Canada the main core of Canadian immigration is built on the economic class. Economic class are those set of persons who can, by virtue of their education, language ability, and their work experience, can build the economy of Canada. my earlier speakers spoke about the focus of the US immigration system. And it's similar to the Canadian immigration system in the sense that our focus is to reunify families. But another big part of our immigration focus as well is economic development of the country. And so economic class of immigration forms a huge part of the Canadian immigration system. There's also, and I'm going to be focusing primarily on economic class, there's also what is called a refugee class or the protected persons class. So those are persons who, as the attorney spoke about as well, are people who, by virtue of their government's inability to protect them, and there's no alternative place for them to stay, they file upon entry to Canada a refugee claim. And they are brought before an immigration refugee board, and they have time to make their cases, they are detained, and if they're successful, they will be granted refugee status, right? But the focus today, I want to focus more on economic class. I will take questions on family class as well, but I want to focus more on economic class, as it is the main driver for immigration to Canada. All right, so we spoke about refugee class already. So you have to fall in 4 groups. You have to be discriminated against or persecuted based on your religion, your race, your particular social group, your political opinion, or nationality. Okay, and we spoke already as well about the family class, who's covered on the family class of immigration, spouses, adopted children, and we also spoke about parents and grandparents. Okay, so let's break down the economic class. The economic class falls into 3 main categories. What is called, we know we had a lot more than 3 on this PowerPoint, but the 3 main categories that we want to look at is the Canadian experience class, the federal skilled worker, and the federal skilled trades. Now, the Canadian experience class are those persons by virtue of, by virtue of studying in Canada are able, working in Canada are able to immigrate to Canada through the express entry system, right? So I repeat that the Canadian experience class are those persons by virtue of their experience in working in Canada can apply to the federal government for immigration status. Then the other category is the federal skilled worker. Those are persons who are in their respective countries. So they're in Jamaica, they're in China, they're in Japan, they're in UK, and they have at least 1 year worth of work in one of 3 categories of work. We have what is called a NOC system, which is just classifying different jobs in 3 different several categories, but the 3 main categories for this economic class is what we call NOC O, A, or B. NOC O generally are your managers, your supervisors, your CEOs. NOC A's are your professionals, your doctors, your lawyers, your teachers. Those are people in the NOC A categories. Now, B categories are people who are skilled trade persons, right? So once you have at least 1 year worth of work experience in your home country, you have studied, more than likely you'd have studied a first degree or an advanced level diploma, and you would have to also sit an English test to show that your language ability is of a certain level, right? And once you are able to satisfy them and you're sufficiently, you're sufficiently, what I would call it now, your age is also a factor. So if you're at a sweet spot, then your chances of immigrating through this system is even higher, right? So that is the federal skilled worker system. So you don't have to be in Canada to apply to this system. It can be anywhere in the world and apply to the federal skilled worker stream under the economic class. There's also the federal skilled trades. This category is reserved for people who are tradespeople, people who are masons, plumbers, you name it. Those persons are the persons who this category was created for. There are other streams of immigration that are not very prominent, but they also play a part, and what we call it, and this provincial nomination is one of those streams. So what is provincial nomination? Provincial nominations are, the idea behind provincial nominations that each province, or you'd say in the US state, and so each province may have their own set of need. So if you're in Alberta, Alberta may have an oil need. If you're in Ontario, you may have need for farms. Each province have their own own local labor shortage or labor needs. So the government created, the federal government created a system where each provincial government is allowed to select workers based on, or select skilled workers based on their particular labor market need. So they created what is called a provincial nomination process, where if you have a certain skill set, the province will reach out to you and say, we want your skills, we want you to apply for what is called a provincial nomination, which is pretty much a golden ticket into getting into Canada as a permanent resident. From time to time, the government introduced other programs like pilot programs and public policies that will allow for persons to gain permanent residency as well. All right, so I want to go back to the Canadian Experience class because this is one of the most popular streams, especially during COVID. So the Canadian Experience class, as I said before, is meant for those persons who have worked in Canada for at least 1 year in a particular category of work to apply for their permanent residence. So many people say, oh, okay, Rohan, how do I get a job in Canada? How can I work for at least 1 year? So from my experience, majority of the persons who have taken advantage of the Canadian Experience class are those persons who would have come to Canada to study, and then by studying, they would have gained work. It would have been afforded a work permit, and they would have worked for that 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then applied under the Canadian Experience class, right? And one of the benefits of studying in Canada, I noted the other immigration lawyers, talking about studying in their respective countries. One of the benefits of studying in Canada, yes, you have to, similar to the other gentlemen, you have to first apply to a set list of schools. So that is called, we call those schools designated learning institutions. And they are generally partly government funded institutions. They're not private colleges or private universities. So you have to first meet the matriculation requirement, whatever it is, whether it's a first degree, whether it's CXCs, you have to first meet those requirements first. And then, of course, select one of those schools, meet the requirements. And of course, you also have to show that you have enough finances to support your study. The general rule of thumb, in order to be approved for your study permit, is to have 1 year's tuition, prove that you can pay the first year's tuition or 1 year's tuition plus $10,000. So that $10,000 is what Canada estimates that you would need to survive here for 1 year as a student, right? The average tuition these days is running anywhere between 13 to 16,000 Canadian dollars. So a student who is serious and about studying in Canada would have to ensure that they have at least 26,000 to 30,000 Canadian dollars in a bank account somewhere to show the government that they can support themselves as a student. One of the differences, though, with the Canadian study permit process or being a Canadian student is that you are able to work from day one, right? So once you land here as a student, you're able to work. Your study permit allows you access to work. But what they do, they put a restriction on the amount of hours that you can work per week, because you're supposed to be here as a bona fide student. So they want to ensure that you won't, you're not going to come out of studying and just work, but they want to ensure that you maintain your grades and maintain your student status. So they restrict the amount of work per week to 20 hours per week. And this is during, of course, school. If there's like a summer break, you can only work more hours. If you're on reading break or spring break, whatever, once school is not in session, you're allowed to work more than 20 hours. But once school is in session, you're restricted to 20 hours per week. People often ask, is this enough for me to pay my second year's tuition or pay my second semester's tuition? That question is tricky. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter what the student may come here with. They may come here with a master's degree. They may come with a first degree, CXCs, diploma. It doesn't necessarily translate to what you'll be employed as a student, right? Oftentimes, students may take just minimum wage jobs or just above minimum wages jobs, and that salary is not necessarily going to be able to support your living expenses plus your tuition. So it is advisable that you be realistic look within your finances, and it doesn't have to be the student finance. It can be a supporting aunt, a supporting business, supporting parent. But the sponsor, whoever is who's will be financially responsible for that person, has to see whether I have the amount of money necessary to make this a reality. So people take advantage of the Canadian Experience class, as I said before, by studying first, and then after studying, once you study, so what the rule is that if you take a course of study for 8 months to a year, you're allowed a 1-year postgraduate work permit. That means you're allowed to work in the country for 1 year afterwards. You're guaranteed that work permit will be granted to you, and that will allow you to work in pretty much in any occupation for at least 1 year. If you study for above 16 months, say to 3 years, you're given an additional 3-year postgraduate work permit that allows you to work in Canada for additional 3 months. So they pretty much reward you for studying longer with a longer postgraduate work permit permit, right? One of the things to note, however, is that once you are working post-graduation, you have to ensure that the job is have to be paid. It can't be voluntary work. It has to be a paid job, and it has to fall in what we call NOC A or B. Once it falls in that NOC, then you're eligible to apply after 1 year for your permanent residency through the express entry system. Oftentimes advise my students people who are seeking to become students that, choose a program that generally has what is called a co-op component, meaning that you can work, as a part of your studies, you have to get a job, like a job experience towards the end of it forms a part of your credits, where you have to work in the field of study for like 2 months, 3 months. Why I encourage that is that the employers get to see you from that start, from very early, and they can assess whether they want to keep you or, and keep you on afterwards. And many times, a lot of our students have been employed long before finishing in college or university. So I find that to be very useful. Not all programs offer co-op options, but it's a very good option to think about. Also, under the Canadian Experience class, there's additional points that you gain towards your permanent residency. You get points for studying here, you get points for working here, you get points from additional points that persons who are under the federal skilled worker will not be able to get because they have been in their home countries applying, and they won't be able to benefit from those points. Okay, so the federal skilled worker, we spoke about this earlier, are people who are outside of the country and that's how I came to Canada, as a federal skilled worker. So if your job fell in any of the categories, you have worked it for at least 1 year for pay, you have some post-secondary education, your language ability, you have to sit one of 2 exams, the IELTS International Language Testing System, IELTS, general training, it cannot be the academic training, or you have done the CELPIP, general training again. The CELPIP is only administered in Canada. I think it is in 2 other countries now, probably India and China, but the CELPIP is mainly administered in Canada, and they have to do the general training as well, or the TEF, which is a French exam, because Canada is a bilingual country, so they have opportunities as well for francophone people who are of French tongue. And what is very important as well, and this is one of the key differences as well with the federal skilled worker programs, that you must have proof of settlement funds. So settlement funds are those savings that you would have that the government wants you to have in order to grant you that permanent residence. They're saying that they want you to have enough money to support yourself for 6 months upon arrival to Canada. They don't want you to be on social services or to be a burden to the state. They want you to have some amount of savings. So if you have all the work experience, all the education, all the language ability, but you don't have the funds, you'll be found inadmissible to Canada. Right? Federal skilled trades, for the trade persons, their work experience has to be 2 years of work. The pass mark for the English language test is a little bit lower. It's at 5. The maximum is 7. Is at 5 for speaking, 4 for listening, reading, and writing. 5 for speaking and listening, 4 for reading and writing. And they have to meet all job requirements, have to have an LMIA supported job letter. Work experience doesn't have to be continuous. All right. So we spoke about points earlier, and Lucy mentioned the word points earlier, and I'm going to explain to you how points come into the Canadian immigration system. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just plugging in my power here. So as I mentioned earlier, the crux of the Canadian immigration system surrounds economic development, the brightest minds coming into the country and driving the economy, right? And what they want to know is that they're selecting the best of the best. And that's a system that the New Zealanders have, that's a system that the Americans are trying to move towards under the old administration, as the lawyer spoke about, is trying to get the creme de la creme, the top graduates, to come to Canada. So they create a system called the Express Entry System. The Express Entry System was launched in 2015, and what it guaranteed is that from the time of application to the time of resolution of the application would be 6 months. They have been very good maintaining that 6 months. Sorry, I'm trying to get some power in my laptop. They have been very good in maintaining that 6 months. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm having a power issue. I'm not sure why. Right. So they have been pretty good in maintaining that 6 months turnaround time. However, COVID sort of, with most people, I guess, upset the whole immigration processing time, because things have really been backed up in the last couple of months. Sorry, I just need to find a power source here. I think my computer is going on this one.
That is great, Mr. Dixon. When you're ready, just come right back in. I just wanted to offer, we've been getting quite a bit of chatter here in our private chat room and on social media. So we're just repeating, just so that those who are not on the Zoom can hear us. And when you're ready, Mr. Dixon, they want your information, but the lawyers before is wgolden@goldenlawgroup.com, as well as we have info@amitychambers.com. That is United Kingdom. You're ready for us, Mr. Dixon? We also have a
Give me 1 second. Give me one. I'm just.
Absolutely. So you let us know. So this Global Connections Forum is brought to you by none other than the St. Catherine High alumni. So if you are a member of St. Catherine High School, located at 35 St. John's Road, please make sure that you sign up for your alumni. Miss Millicent Tennant will drop, for those in Jamaica, the Google form. The membership fee is only $2,500, and you pay that directly to St. Catherine High School. The NCB account number is 471-045-918, or you can pay cash at the meeting. You can also send an email to confirm payment at schalumni@gmail.com. So call in or press us family around the world. You can join the local alumni association, and we will have a PSA for the Northeast and the Southeast momentarily. Are you back with us, Mr. Dixon?
I am back. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we absolutely. Federal Skills Trade. I'm looking at Canada and saying, boy, Jerry, maybe it's not the UK. Canada is looking very attractive.
Canada nearer. I know far at all. Near.
I agree.
Jerry, your social media won't make you go Canada.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
No.
Yes, it will.
No.
I say A after every sentence.
No, you need to clean up your social media page.
My social media, nice for Canada.
All right.
I think Mr. Dixon is ready.
Yes, Dixon, go ahead.
Yes, I am. All right. So I was speaking about the express entry system, right? So we spoke about earlier the Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skill Worker, and the Federal Skill Trade. And we spoke about provincial nomination and many different programs, but all of these programs feed into what is called the express entry system. Sorry. Yes. Everybody's hearing me still?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
okay.
we understand.
Loud and clear.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Right. So all of these. Right. So all of these feed into the express entry system. The express entry system is a points-based system that you gain points by virtue of how young you are, your age, how highly educated you are, your English language ability, and your work experience. So those are the 4 main drivers behind the point system. The point system is on a scale. The younger you are, the more points you get for age. The more educated you are, the more points you get for education, and so forth. Work experience in Canada does generate points. Having a sibling in Canada does generate points as well. So once you work for 1 year, let's go back to Canadian experience class. So you have studied for 1 year, worked for 1 year. You now are able to get points based on your work experience, based on your studying in Canada, and you have a sister in Ontario. You get points for that as well. And you happen to be 25, you get points for that as well. You get points up until the age of 45. But don't be daunted. Many of us, yes, maybe over the age of 45, but there are still points to be gained from other areas. In other ways, you can get points to qualify under the express entry system. So, so what happens is that once you, whether you're a federal skilled worker, federal skilled trades, Canadian experience class, or provincial nominee person, you enter the express entry system based on points that you have been awarded. And every two weeks, the Canadian government will do what is called a draw. And that draw will be a minimum score that they will, randomly choose. So they'll say 435. And if your score was 435 or higher, you'll be asked to complete an application for your permanent residency. And that is why the provincial nomination is such a coveted, one of the coveted programs, because the provincial nomination grants you an automatic 600 points. So if you have a skill that a particular province wants, and they give you what is called a provincial nomination certificate, you're automatically guaranteed a draw, because they're never going to be drawing higher than 600, right? And you must have had at least 100 or 200 or even 300 in the first place to have gotten the 600 points. So you probably end up at somewhere at 900 points. So you are quite safe if you're given a provincial nomination. It's right. But majority, but there are other aspects that you can gain your permanent residence through other than provincial nomination. There's a Canadian experience class, and which has been the main driver in the pandemic for immigration to Canada, because the borders were closed and they were creating ways and means. They were just doing Canadian CEC draws, Canadian experience draws, only because they couldn't allow the federal skilled workers from around the world to come in. So they were focusing primarily on the Canadian experience class. So what you found is that a lot of persons who would have come to Canada to study would have taken advantage of this process. And that is one of the biggest driver I dare say of immigration to Canada, is through the Canadian experience class, because and that's why a lot of people come to Canada to study. And I will say boldly that Canada offers a world. I've been educated here as well more than once. And Canada offers very good, high quality programs, and they're not, and yes, it's a big driver, it's a big attraction for people to come from all over the world to come to Canada to study, because they know that there's a process of working through studying, of gaining your permanent residency, but there's no compromise in the quality of the education that is offered to the students that come here. And they have to still meet the requirements, they have to still perform at the best to graduate and to enter the work world. So this has been a very big component of the process of immigration to Canada. Yeah, so that's it. So in a nutshell, that's the express entry is a vehicle by which all the other branches of immigration is filtered through, apart from the family sponsorship, apart from the refugee class is filtered through, and the draws are done bi-monthly, twice per month. They haven't had a draw in a little while because of COVID. They're trying to get rid of the backlog, but they'll be starting the draws again in June, and it's going to be it's still one of the main drivers of immigration to Canada. All right, let me skip to the next slide here. Let me go back to full presentation mode. Right. So we'll talk about provincial nominations, and even within the provincial nominations, there are so Ontario may have their own provincial nomination, but they have something called a rural Ontario provincial nomination, where certain parts of Ontario may need workers with certain skill sets, and they may say, well, we need these persons, and if we can find these persons that are out there, then we are willing to sponsor them to become permanent residents, right? there's Atlantic Immigration Nominee Program for the Atlantic provinces. So there are many different avenues to come to Canada. And often from time to time, we're going to create what we call temporary public policies to sort of help people to become permanent residents faster. And we have had in COVID, we had what was called a Trt Pr Pathway, where if you're a student, if you're here and study for 2 years, then you could apply for your permanent residency. If you are working here for 1 year during COVID as a healthcare worker providing care, then you could apply for your permanent residency. These were temporary policies that were just meant to reward those persons who are working during COVID and to create an easier path to permanent residence, permanent immigration, right? And this humanitarian compassionate grounds is one of those categories that sometimes people that has no other means of immigrating to Canada through none of the other programs I mentioned before, none of the economic class, none of the family class, none of the family classes, or they can't put together a proper claim for refugee status or for protected person status, then they will approach the government as on the grounds of humanitarian and compassionate grounds. But oftentimes these persons would have to show that there's a child involved, that the best interest of the child is going to be affected if this person is deported. And if they can show that there's some community involvement, they have become a part of the community, the children go to school, they're doing well, and if they are deported to their home country, they will face they'll face some hardship or some unemployment, then those are good grounds for an HNC case to be brought and for it to be successful. The other thing to think about is that if there's employment, if you're employed, gainfully employed, legally gainfully employed, that goes as well, that helps you as well in your case in human agency applications. The agency applications can take a long time to be decided. It can take up to 2 years to be decided. But one of the important things that you do not have to be in status. So you can overstay your time for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, months, you can still file an agency application. Unlike UK, unlike Canada, unlike US, Canada does expect you to abide by the provisions of your stay if you're a student, to study and to leave when you're finished. If you're a visitor, to stay, to visit and leave when you're done. However, they do not hold it against you on 2 grounds. If you're applying for, well, three pretty much, refugee class, humanitarian and compassionate grounds, and if you're being sponsored by your spouse. So if you're in a marriage relationship that is not for convenience but a genuine marriage, then they will not hold against you you overstaying. What I also want to mention that is different about Canada as well is that if you are being sponsored as a spouse, it can be conjugal. It can be common law, and it can also be the regular, husband and wife, the regular marriage arrangement. A conjugal, and I just want to point out what a conjugal relationship is. So conjugal relationship in this context is one in which both spouses, say one is from a Muslim country and they are not allowed to marry to a Christian, right? So they can't get married in the Muslim country, and they may not be able to, and Iran won't release the person to come to Canada to get married because they don't believe in Christians and Muslims being married. But if you can prove that you are truly in that relationship for at least a year, we'll call a conjugal relationship, then then you can sponsor that person. If you're in if you're in a common law relationship, you can show cohabitation for at least 1 year. So you show the cohabitation by proof of like shared expenses, share lease agreements, share insurance, bank accounts, things like that for at least 1 year. Then you can make an application and provide proof that you are and make a declaration, of course, sign a declaration that you're common law and you're being sponsored under these provisions. And one of the good things about this spousal sponsorship is that within the first 3, you can also make an application for a work permit. So the spousal sponsorship usually takes about a year to be resolved. I've seen them done come through in 6 months. But what happens is that you can apply for a work permit as a sponsored spouse and be able to work while your case is being decided, which is great because it's important sometimes for the person to stay independent. They don't want to feel like they're a burden to their spouse. I mean, there are different requirements that the spouse must meet, similar to what the attorney from the UK was talking about. You have to have a certain earning ability and so forth and so on. But it is a much more friendlier process, I find. The fact that they are given a work permit to be able to work while the process is being decided upon. And once you can prove that you're a bona fide relationship, then generally they approve it. Yeah, and the marriage has to have, as I said, been taking place it can't be a marriage of convenience. So I said, so that is it. That is it. Any questions for me?
Clapping, clapping, clapping. Make Canada sound exciting, and all I was here thinking all along that why Canada pouring and you want to go over there, so too cold and can't bother. But no, no, it's a different vibe. Let's go with the questions real quick so we can push into our time.
Dr. Dunkley?
She's remember she's doing something else at the moment, so we'll just have to read through and go quickly.
There's a question from the floor here.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dixon, for your enlightening report. Question I have is in relation to someone having had a permanent, permanent residency, but their PR card was not renewed on the basis of they didn't meet the requirements of being in the country at for a particular time. Imagine you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Now, persons have since gotten visitors visa and have come back many times since. But if they would want to do that again in terms of residency by way of skilled labor, would that process have to be done all over again?
Yes, it would have to be done all over again, because that person would have to compete again with everybody they competed with before to be given that permanent residence. When you're granted a permanent residence, similar to, I believe, how the US operates as well, is that they expect you to meet your residency requirement. You can, I don't know, but generally when persons are being refused or their residency status is being withdrawn, they can do an appeals before the IRB to argue their case.
Persons chose to waive that appeal on the basis of circumstances, but was granted visitors visa nonetheless.
Yes, so the answer is yes. They can. They would have to compete again and meet all the requirements like anybody else to get their permanent residence.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rohan. I see a question here as it relates to the cost of a study permit application in Canada. And the second one, let me just give that to you as well. What is the process and ease as it relates to getting through as a refugee in Canada? What is the process?
Okay. So the cost of a study permit is 150, well, the government fees, right? So this is the person, if the person, and that's the other thing that's different with my colleague earlier, my US colleague earlier mentioned that, you know, yes, immigration is complex, a complex matter, but even though it's a complex matter, the government oftentimes will encourage people to do it themselves. They say, oh, you don't need to pay a lawyer, you don't need to pay a consultant, do it yourself. I would advise anybody who is not too sure of themselves or not too sure of the system to seek up an attorney or immigration licensed attorney, licensed immigration consultant or notary of Quebec to help them with this process. They will have their own fees, right? But the government fee is $150 for the study permit.
And the refugee question?
Okay, right. So refugee cases can take up to a year to be decided. You have to, as the lawyer said earlier, I think it was the US lawyers mentioned, Mr. Golding, that you have to make that declaration at the point of entry, right? It's easier. You don't have to, but it's easier and it's best that you make it at that point in time. And it will be easier for your case going forward for the IRB if you make that declaration. I want to declare that I am seeking refugee status or to be protected as a protected person.
Okay, great. I see there are so many questions coming in, and I know that Jerry, the concept and just to bring the seminar is such a useful one, because there are so many questions out there. So so many questions that persons are asking. All right, we're trying to get through as many as we can. There's one here that Mr. Ron, if you are trained RN in Jamaica and working in the field for years, how can you get a job in Canada?
Okay, so getting a job in Canada is not the easiest thing. That is why a lot of people would use the Canadian Experience class or the federal skilled worker. So in order to get a job in Canada, one has to prove that, well, the employer, it's employer-driven process. So the employer has to do the petition to the government on your behalf. And in order for them to start that process, they have to get what is called a labor market impact assessment done. That is to say that that skill is needed in the area that is being that the employer operates in, and that there's nobody else, no permanent resident, no citizen is in that can do that job, right? In Canada can do that job. So that is why it is achievable. There's a shortage of nurses, shortage of doctors, and it's achievable, but it's not the easiest thing to do, because not many of the companies want to go the distance, because they have to advertise the job for at least a month. They have to interview people, and they have to, and once they have proven and paid the fees at that, once they have proven that there's nobody locally, whether locally in Ontario or across the country that can fill that job, then they have to pay the fees and do the necessary paperwork for that person. So it is not impossible, but what I find is that not a lot of employers are willing to go the distance to do it. So the other route for a nurse would be for the federal skilled worker program. As I said, if you have 1 year worth of work and you get your English, you do the English test to assess your language ability, and you get your credential assessed, then you can apply to the federal skilled worker on the federal skilled worker stream through the express entry system to gain permanent residence.
Excellent. Jerry?
I'm stunned. I don't have no words. I never noticed so much things can go on to Canada. I'm frightened. Sorry.
I see one here, Ron, where somebody I see one here that is very interesting, that I'm an attorney and I want to practice law in Canada. What is the process? Would I need a study visa? It's as opposed to a work permit, I'm assuming that they're asking.
But you have to.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I was going to give my expertise, but it's better you do it.
Well, what I have, just like medicine and in law, you have to do sometimes a bridging program, and there are some universities like us, I think is Good Law School, that have bridging programs for lawyers. I've had clients before who have connected with law schools for them to check out the bridging program. So oftentimes you're not able to practice or to set up shop right away. You have to, of course, get a study permit approved. So you have to go through, meet the same requirements, apply to the school, and meet the same requirements of any other student studying anything else. And then you will do their bridging programs and be called to the bar, pass the bar, and then you become a practicing attorney in Canada. So I know persons have done it successfully, and I'm not an expert at those bridging programs, but I have persons who I work with who are source people in nursing and law, and I oftentimes will co-consult with for my lawyer clients who want to practice law in Canada, and so they could share their experience and their expertise and know-how, and to make that into facilitating that transition from Jamaica to practicing law in Canada.
Thank you, Mr.
That's correct. That's correct. I was just going to say to Rohan that's correct, because what happens is that just like with other jurisdictions, there are different, even though you might be a practicing lawyer in Jamaica, each jurisdiction will have their own different, anomalies and so on. So the bridging program is what will bring you. So rightfully, they would need a study visa because they would need to get into one of those schools so they can become more au fait with the different practices as it relates to law in Canada as opposed to just being a lawyer in Jamaica. So yes, and that's basically across most jurisdictions.
Yes.
For skilled
All right.
areas, psychology and so on, because they have different bar exams or different affiliations that they'll have to make themselves comfortable with.
Right, that's correct.
Mr. Dixon, I want to ask
Yes,
you
sir.
a favor of you, that if you can just visit the chat for us and type your responses to anybody who was asked anything that we didn't answer, that you didn't get to answer. We are pressed for time. So if you could remove the sharing of your slide, and we want to press on and thank you and say amazingly that your presentation was well received and you sparked a myriad of questions and interests. You make Canada sound like some of the people actually can think about go. Because before nobody
Of course, as
but
always, Jerry, and I'm surprised that you didn't know that a long time ago.
no, actually I know, because I visit Canada, and now I'm going to my story. But yeah, I've been to Canada so many times playing rugby and all these things. Some know about Canada, some don't really want Bruce and brag. So, but we just make it know that people generally don't know so Canada nice and you can go there and work, and it's a lot easier to get into as well, especially if you have a skill or a trade or something that you can show that you can work.
That's correct.
We will accept you. All right. So we want to move on because we're pressed for time.
So yes, in the interest of time, we have now so to get to any one of these places, Jerry, one of the things that you definitely will need is your passport.
You need your passport. Where you going without passport?
We definitely will need,
Oliver.
Yes, and a valid passport at that. They say manners carry through the world, but in this case, you definitely need your burgundy book or your blue book. And so to come and speak to us at this time, and I'll just call the names in order so that they can, we can get them after each other. We're going to have Miss Carol Saunders out to Jamaica, and she is from PICA, as well as Colette James from Immigration, the Immigration Unit at PICA here in Jamaica. So we'll now have the introduction for Miss Carol Saunders from Jamaica.
Is this page that we're seeing now being shared? We have to take down that sharing. Mr. Dixon, Mr. Dixon's screen needs to stop sharing. Yeah.
So we're back. Miss Saunders is on. Good evening, Miss Saunders.
Good evening, Miss Saunders.
Good evening to everyone.
Miss Saunders, you're supposed to know about me, don't you? Hear about me or you know about me?
I've been hearing so much about you during this presentation. I feel like I know you a long time.
All right, that's very good, because that's what you know, say, my rugby people come to visit your office very regular, very, very regular. All right, let's get the introduction played if we can.
Does all truly mean all, right?
Director of Citizenship at the PASS.
You might have to restart it, Karen. It's not playing.
No, I'm not sure she's playing. I just muted her.
Yeah, our sound is off. So send her a message. Let's get her to replay. Okay. All right, we'll play it after. Let's move straight
go ahead,
into
Miss Saunders.
this lovely presentation. Miss Saunders from PICA, Passport Office.
Good evening, everyone. I must commend you on your initiative here. It's a very healthy one. I'm sure most persons have benefited from the information shared already and are making plans. But my name is Carol Saunders Hammond, as the introduction suggested, and I am the Director of Citizenship at Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency. I heard mention about passport, and I can make some mention of it, but it is not my main area. But I will share if there's anyone here who needs information about passport. Now, if I may share my screen, I'd appreciate that. Okay, so The citizenship unit is the operating arm of the Passport, Immigration, and Citizenship Agency that provides border security for persons who wish to acquire citizenship of Jamaica. So here is where you come with all your applications, and we have several categories, some of which you may not very well be interested in this presentation. And so my presentation will focus mainly on those that the diaspora would have an interest. And those would be citizenship by descent and citizenship by marriage. And our processing is centralized. So all applications come to us here in Jamaica from wherever in the world you are and make an application from. And there is where it will be processed, a determination made, and if you are eligible and qualified, a certificate would be presented. A person belongs to a country and makes that a legal status, and we have several categories, as I said before: birth, inheritance, naturalization, registration, or reinstatement. So we do have persons who would have gone overseas, resettled elsewhere, and at a convenient time to their own development, they would come back for reinstatement. So you have to be either born in Jamaica or have ties to Jamaica, or you may have a blood link to Jamaica in order to be qualified. So once you become a person who is settled in Jamaica and acquired citizenship, you have to make your contribution to the country through taxes and so on. And the government has certain control over us. We are Jamaicans and we know. But I'm also speaking to a part of the audience here that may not necessarily be Jamaicans, because you would have had spouses and children who were not born in Jamaica. Generally, you can have more than one citizenship. However, you are of one nationality. And our legislations tell us which one to apply to you wherever you are applying from. So we have some that are entrenched in the Constitution, and we have some categories of citizenship that are granted at the minister's discretion under the Jamaican Nationality Act. So the categories of citizenship that we process: citizenship by descent, by marriage, registration, where as a Commonwealth citizen and you have lived in Jamaica for 5 years, you become eligible to make that application. We also have a category for children who their parents are foreigners and they wish for those children to acquire citizenship. This category may be of interest to you because if you, as a Jamaican, adopted a child in a foreign jurisdiction, that child is not a descendant. That child would have to make an application, or you would make an application on behalf of that child under registration as a minor. For persons who are living in non-Commonwealth jurisdictions and they are interested in becoming a Jamaican, they would have to live here for 5 years in order to be eligible. And persons who are wishing to be reinstated as a Jamaican, those persons must have been a Jamaican by birth, descent, or having been adopted as a Jamaican, and then they renounce citizenship thereafter. So the Constitution was amended to make a provision for a wide range of persons who were previously excluded. What do I mean? If you were a married man, you could apply for citizenship by descent for your child. But if you were a married woman, you could not. If you were a single man or an unmarried man and you had a child outside of Jamaica, that child would not be eligible for citizenship by descent. It would have to be the mother who was unmarried who would be able to pass on her citizenship to a child. So the Constitution was amended in March 1993 to correct that. And by so doing, we have now a multiplicity of persons who are eligible to make applications on behalf of their children who were born overseas for citizenship by descent. And all of this is coming back to a constitutional provision that was made in 1962. So if you were born before independence, on the day of your birth, you became a Jamaican. If you were born after independence, on the date of your birth, you become eligible for Jamaican citizenship. And if you were born to a mother or father who acquired citizenship by marriage, then after that, the birth of the child, after the marriage, that child would be eligible for citizenship by descent. It sounds a bit complicated, but we have a very informed customer service relations. And so whenever you call into our offices, we were able to walk you through, should you be interested. There are forms to be completed, and those forms are online. You are to submit along with your own birth certificate as the applicant, the birth certificate of your Jamaican parent. You may also be a Jamaican by descent through your grandparent or your great-grandparent. We ask for the birth certificate of each generation necessary to the proving of your claim. We ask for the passport size photographs, which should be certified to say that you are the bona fide person in the photograph. We ask for an ID, valid ID. And if you happen to have changed your name during time, we ask for the official naming document, be it a deed, a court order, or a deed poll. And this is what the form looks like currently. And I can tell you, we are moving to change the form in short order because we are seeing more generations than can be captured on this form being eligible and are applying for citizenship by descent. There are some persons though who would not be eligible for citizenship by descent, and those are persons who acquired, offspring of persons who acquired citizenship by registration as a Commonwealth person. If you were granted registration as a minor, your children would not get it. If you acquired citizenship by naturalization, your children are not descendants. If you were born before your parents married to a Jamaican, you would not be eligible. Also under the Constitution is a provision for persons who are married to Jamaican. Now, Section 4 makes a unique provision in that if you were married before independence and you were divorced or widowed, you could still make that application today. But as we can all imagine, that age group is a dying breed, so we don't have very many persons who are eligible under this category anymore. Still have some, but not very many. The one that you would more than likely encounter would be the application under Section 7, which says that if you were married after independence, that you would be eligible. It means also that you must be in the marriage currently. You can't be divorced, you can't be widowed. If you are separated, you could still make an application because separation is not a divorce, it's not the equivalent. And persons separate for various reasons and get back together. So you would still be eligible to make an application. However, the minister at March 1993 became empowered to refuse those applications by marriage if certain conditions were satisfied. So if you were found not to be in the marriage with the expressed intention of living together as man and wife, the minister can now refuse your application. And this is corroborated under Section 5A of the Nationality Act. So the offenses are listed here. If you are found to be involved in violence, fraud, or dishonesty, the sale, use of drugs, manufacturing and use of drugs, he can deny the application. If you were punished in any country by law and sentenced to a term greater than 2 years, and it would be a similar scenario if you were in Jamaica, then the minister may deny your application. This is what our application form more or less looks like for citizenship by marriage. And it says woman at the top. That is because this too must be changed by legislation. And when the amendment was considered, the form was not considered at the same time. We have been pushing to get it changed. This form looks very antiquated, and we're trying to get them to make it more customer friendly as well, so that it is not only more modern, but customer friendly. And there is an oath at the back that persons who are not Commonwealth citizens must make in order .
What's she there? She gone? Where's our speaker? Miss Saunders, she drop off. We have to get her back.
Thank you so much, Jerry. So I think while we are waiting on Ms. Saunders to come back in, we want to thank everyone who has certainly stayed with us via Zoom. We were +100 and via social media. We are excited for the Global Connection series, Jerry. We want to congratulate
Excited.
Catherine alumni, don't it? Boy.
Man, what an initiative. And we have 3 more to go. Everybody make sure you are aware of what the dates are and that you're spreading the word how wonderful this one is and how much information is being shared. And we are going to follow it up with a lot more information that can help you in your immigration and learning process. And
Yes.
here she comes back in.
Okay, great. And so while she is coming back, and so we are listening to and waiting for, of course, our esteemed guest. And I know that now we are hearing from Ms. Carol Saunders, correct? Who
Yes.
has given us valuable information on our PICA process. I want to commend again the St. Catherine High alumni. We must thank our global sponsors, Integrated Diaspora Services. So big up. The Integrated
Diaspora Services, yes.
Big up to CEEN TV and big up to the Jamaica Diaspora Northeast United States. And let me just shout out, boy, Precious family with large. We have had on this Zoom, we want to acknowledge some guests, Dr. Kevin Brown, who is my Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Rep in the Northeast, is on. Lawman Lynch, the New York State Chair for the Jamaica Diaspora Northeast, New York, is on the think tank, and Donovan Longmore, the Jamaican Diaspora Northeast lead in Connecticut on our Northeast think tank, is also on, and Miss Tracy Andrews is also on from our agricultural sector. So again, this is the first of many, Jerry. Our second is July 17th. Our third is July 31st. We're going to talk about home ownership. Boy, no, Jerry, you know, some need one house, you know. Property land development, real estate,
Yes.
right?
We're going to learn about that. Investment in real estate.
We're coming close to retirement, you know, you don't realize it now. Some of us touching the 50, you know.
So most of we are 50, some of us.
some not quite there, but we're giving thanks for life. So as we start to come on, we're going to just talk about investments, stocks and bonds, bank account and taxes. And then we're going to do business, right? Entrepreneurship, and how do we manage businesses and manage well and organize well? And that is the registration of companies and document procurement. And again, our next Global Connection webinar series brought to us by St. Catherine High School alumni. St. Catherine High School is located at 35 St. John's Road in Spanish Town. Global sponsors CEEN TV, Integrated Diaspora Services, and Diaspora Northeast. So Jerry, while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and play her introductory video.
Yes, please.
Move on to our next.
Reintroduce.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Reintroduce, and we're thanking everyone for staying with us. Jerry, can we ask everyone, did we already ask them to drop their details in the chat to make sure that
we did, and they have been doing so. I haven't seen people dropping their details in the chat, but we're going to remind you that if you haven't registered into the webinar, then you need to put your details into the chat so you can be sent a copy of this this webinar, so you can get the information for yourself to listen to and go over, get more information stored for yourself.
All right. And then is Miss Colette James here, Jerry? Just so that we don't break our flow. Is Miss Colette?
Yes, I think she's still here. Miss Colette James is definitely here, and I'm sure she's ready to go. And she's saying, yes, let me go. Try the gate.
So I'm going to, okay, Miss Saunders is coming back in. So let's
she's trying to come back in.
Yes.
I hope our service holds up.
While we allow her to entree back in. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Joining our
thank you very much.
Webinar.
Thank you very much. And this is a very important section for me because I have athletes who need to get papers, citizenship documents for Jamaica, who participate and represent the country, who are based overseas and their parents are from here. So I'm very excited that we have Pika online. Yes, here she is.
I'm so sorry about that. And I think it may happen again. My electricity, I'm not sure what is going on with it, and it is just fluctuating.
Nothing in your control, my dear.
No. So I hope that I was able to, better inform you about what it takes to get citizenship of Jamaica for your children and your spouses, for those of us who are so inclined to go overseas and settle. Because we do have very patriotic Jamaicans. We have people who are passionate about Jamaica, and they do not want to know that there is that disconnect that they cannot bridge. And so when you apply for citizenship and you have accomplished that task, you are now eligible for a Jamaican passport. And so you will present that certificate of citizenship along with the other credentials required for the passport. And those would be your birth certificate, the completed form, 2 passport size photographs of yourself, and one should be certified by a notary public or a consular officer. Any one of our missions you could attend there if you're a first timer. If you are not a first timer and you wish to renew your passport, you may do so online. You may do so through the mission as well. But we know what is happening with the pandemic. And so in the interest of our customer, we have now made available the opportunity for persons to renew their passports online. But first timers will still need to go in to present themselves when they're making that application.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ms. Carol Saunders. Now, Jerry, let's see what questions we have, because you yourself, you said you look about your paperwork, sir.
Yeah, I have athletes who apply for citizenship every year, right through the year. We have athletes who are needed. Up to now, right now, we have quite a few who are needed. So the questions are mount every time. The process is very difficult sometimes because they have to find. And one thing I want to point out, just before we bring in Ms. James, is that if the paperwork that you send in has any errors on it, like the creasing of the birth certificate to show
the details of the particular person.
Right.
It's a challenge because if we must get documents that are legible. At the point in time, we are still processing almost verbatim from the documents into a single document, and we won't guess what it is. We can't guess what it is. So the documents must be impeccable in proving the claim. I want to throw in here quickly that, especially for athletes, urgency is on a whole, but the athletes in general, we ask that you send them in with enough time for us to process, because the bureaucracies can really slow down the process, especially in a pandemic. When the mission is to move the application, it goes through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is part of the mission is a part of that ministry before it gets to PICA. And in returning it to you, we have to send it to the headquarters Ministry of Foreign Affairs before it gets back to the particular mission. And that can take on a questionable number of weeks. So when you throw that in now, along with anomalies involving the names, dates, and place of birth of parents and change of names, these are details that we would want you to sort out before you even send the application. I can assure you that the citizenship unit moves with alacrity on these applications. So we too are hindered when there are these challenges.
And I brought that up. That's
wow.
a very key component.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much. And I'm just again going to ask Jerry if our alumni and integrated diaspora services can consider including PICA perhaps in our final of the 3 in July.
I would think that's very, very good suggestion, Doctor. Yes.
Wonderful. So before we get to Ms. Colette James, we want to certainly honor you, Ms. Carol Sanders, and ensure Hammond that our community, that we know who presented to us and who you are. And Miss Salmon, if I come to Jamaica, pardon me, Miss Sanders, I can come and ask for you and say, boy, it's my big friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell
you know me, I got
them I know you a long time.
Miss Sanders, you know I am coming. You know me reaching you soon.
So this was the video introduction for Ms. Carol Saunders Hammond.
We welcome our next presenter, Carol Saunders Hammond, Director, Citizenship at the Passport, Immigration, and Citizenship Agency, PICA, in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Carol Saunders Hammond.
Woo! Yeah, love it. Not like being outroed. All right, thank you, Carol Sanders.
Thank you.
Hammond.
We're
going to move to our next presenter, who is none other than Miss Colette James. She's also from PICA, and is going to add a little bit of more spice. And I'm going to give her one of them nice intro there because she's our final presenter. So here we go. Coming in from PICA, ladies and gentlemen, coming out of the blue corner with your passport colors is Miss Colette James.
Great, and I will open. So we introduce her. Boy, Jerry, I want to introduce me the next time, you know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We welcome our next.
Are you seeing her, Jerry?
Not yet. I'm not seeing the video, but I'm hearing it a little bit. If you click it on.
See? Okay, so we'll definitely go back. And can we ask Miss Colette James just to come on so that once we have identified, once we have picked up the video, we can go right to her. Just to say something, Miss Colette James, say something.
Yes, sister. Say hello. She's not muted, Miss James. Miss James is not answering us.
See her?
Miss James, where you got?
And she's unmuted, so we're gonna go ahead and share her introduction.
Yes, please.
Come on.
We welcome our next presenter, Colette James, Immigration Unit, Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ms. Colette James.
I know Colette personally. That's why Miss Colette, please come along. Come out of hiding.
Jerry, we know it takes such a team. As we are getting ready to conclude, we're asking you just to stay with us for another 15 minutes. We'll end promptly at 8:15. And it really takes a team. So we want to shout out Kenrick, Rise, Fliego,
yes,
Santana, Nadine Campbell Pearson, Dennis Butcher B. Cummins, Michael Waba Cummins, Anthony Tuller Johnson, Rowan Butler Jigger, Malade, Fraggy Holland, Carl Williams, Colin Spence, Mel Warren, Cornelia Davis Moore, and Georgia Edwards. And Miss James is sending us a message for those who are with us and via social media that we're just not hearing you, Miss James. I would recommend.
So we're not hearing you.
Just re-enter the Zoom and
yes,
we'll do a public service announcement again for our upcoming Global Connection series. So log out and re-enter the Zoom.
Yes, Ms. James. Go ahead. There she goes. Excellent. And if you haven't signed up yet for the St. Catherine High School alumni membership, please make sure to do so. You want to be getting information. And of course, did we pick up the president of the association that's here? Did we say hello to him?
I think of our president for the local chapter, I know Dion Barnes definitely spoke, and Dion Barnes, pardon me, for the Northeast. Then while it's coming on, let's invite our local chapter president to share a few words. Ms. James is re-entering.
Yeah, Carrie Ann White is here. Hi, Carrie Ann White.
Ms. James is re-entering, and just reminding everyone, Jerry, that our next Global Connection webinar will take place July 17th and then again on July 31st.
Don't miss it.
Can you hear? Just go ahead and say something. Tell us something good. Tell us something good.
You still struggling?
Not getting activity. All right. So maybe, Miss James, I think if you could message us, it's 7:59. We're going to conclude our global webinar connection series here. And Miss James, you're going to ask your kind indulgence as we're living in these very digital times to come back with us when we reconvene our Global Connection webinar series, where we're talking everything you need to know to live a successful and fulfilling life as Jamaicans in the diaspora and Jamaicans at home. Brought to us by the St. Catherine High alumni, Integrated Diaspora Services, Jamaica Diaspora Northeast, and CEEN TV. So Jerry, one love, walk good. It's always good to see you. And we have
a prayer. Remember, we have a close with that prayer. Reverend Robert Matthew.
My parents would have beat me, not Jerry. My mother and my father was a pastor. They would really beat me today.
And this particular pastor would have beat you, because you know I'm still.
I know to report. You understand? July 17th and July 31st. So we'll end with the closing prayer. Jerry, you have the closing prayer. Thank you so much.
I will say thank you, Dr. Dunkley, and all the presenters who helped us out this evening, to the minds that actually thought of this and brought it together. Amazing, remarkable. And the fact that Wilma's jealous over this made my heart sore. Yes. Pastor Reverend Robert McHugh, ladies and gentlemen, to give us the closing prayer so we can walk in faith and in blessing. I would like to bring him on at this time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And a very, very enlightening seminar indeed. We want to thank God for this evening. And to the presenters, we opened in prayer and we thank Bishop Ian Smith for inviting the presence of Almighty God for this seminar. We thank Nordia Trt for information in respect to the Integrated Diaspora Services. We wish you every success, ma'am. We have greetings from Dr. Karen Dunkley and as one of our hosts tonight. She did indeed do justice to her role as the Diaspora Council representative, the Northeast USA chapter. To our presenters, Mr. Matondo Makulu, Mr. Wayne Golding, and Mr. Rowan Dixon, in respect to studying, working, and living in the UK, USA, and Canada, respectively. We were well informed and enlightened, and we thank you. Ms. Carl Saunders Hammond, Director of Citizenship at PICA, and Ms. She didn't manage to come on, but we thank you nonetheless for taking the time to be present. From the PICA, Director of Citizenship and the Immigration Unit. We are really grateful that you took the time. Our hosts, Jerry Benswick, Lily Tomlinson, Dr. Karen Dunkley, we are grateful that you engaged us in a very profound way, and so much to the planning committee of the this great seminar that was put on by the St. Catherine High School alumni. We glorify God that we could have met and heard here and discussed and leave informed. As we part now, as we separate one from the other, I pray, Almighty God, that you bless us, grant us blessings. Hallelujah. And we thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Reverend McHugh, my brother for life.
You know.
You know. Nobody like the two of us, trust me. So I want to say to everyone, have a wonderful Sunday evening. Eat some more than dinner, but don't get fat.
Jerry,
Yes.
Jerry, before you go and everybody goes, I just want to send out there that Integrated Diaspora Services will be in the UK in June and in Europe and
Where
back
will
to
you
the
be?
United States. I will
UK.
be
Where in the UK?
Definitely London and Birmingham. Sure, I will send
When?
out the other information as to where exactly we'll be in the UK and Europe, and we'll be back in the United States, in New Jersey, Connecticut. But the information will be sent out to you via social media and all the St. Catherine medium, so y'all can know where we'll be to provide these services right where you are.
Great, perfect. Like I said, the whole of the UK family to you, pack up in front of this. And there are
So
many.
people can physically come and sign up
Yes.
for stuff, real-time execution. Okay.
Excellent. Absolutely love it. Thank you very, very, very much, Ms. T. All right, Dr. Dunkley, we're leaving this place. We're going to say, watch out.
Looking
Take it easy.
Yes, everyone, register Diaspora 2022 conference, Reigniting a Nation. Come out, get your voices heard, and be a part of the action team. June 14th, 16th, 2022. Register at mfaft.gov.jm. Thank you, Jerry. Presses.
Presses. And tell everybody say presses are the best.
Yay!
Walmart,
Walmart, Chester, Casey, coming for you.
I'm not sure if you want to live stream and you're recorded now, so we can always replay the video if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Cornelia. Hi.